Welcome, fierce souls, to a tale of power, passion, and the one woman brave enough to challenge a king. Meet Kieran Ashford, alpha of the Shadow Ridge Pack, billionaire developer, and a man who has never heard the word no. His empire spans 3 states, his authority is absolute, and his word is law. Men fear him. Women want him. But none have ever truly challenged him. Until her. Raina Cross doesn't bow. She doesn't flinch. And when she walks into his territory with fire in her eyes and defiance on her lips, everything Kieran thought he knew about power, control, and destiny shatters. This is the story of an alpha who rules his world, until fate delivers him a mate he can't control. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Chapter 1. The boardroom fell silent the moment Kieran Ashford entered. It wasn't just his height, though at 6'4" he towered over most men. It wasn't just his build, broad shoulders straining against custom Italian wool, muscles coiled with predatory grace beneath the civilized veneer of his charcoal suit. It wasn't even the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, a reminder of a challenge he'd ended swiftly and permanently. It was the power that rolled off him in waves, an unspoken command that made grown men straighten in their seats, that made seasoned executives suddenly remember urgent emails they needed to check. Alpha energy, thick and undeniable, filled the space like a physical presence. Kieran didn't acknowledge the 12 men seated around the glass conference table. He didn't need to. They were already watching him, waiting, breath held. His second in command, Marcus Thorne, rose immediately. Alpha, the development proposals for the Western Territory are ready for your review. Then let's not waste time. Kieran's voice was a low rumble, dark and absolute. He moved to the head of the table, his place always, and every eye tracked him. Talk. Marcus activated the projection screen. 3 companies have submitted bids for the River Bend project. Stanton Development, Cordova Construction, and... No. The single word cracked through the room like a whip. Marcus paused. Alpha. Stanton's CEO tried to bribe one of our pack members last month. Cordova uses substandard materials and thinks I won't notice. Kieran's dark amber eyes, wolf eyes, even in human form, swept the room. I notice everything. Next. There's a complication. Marcus hesitated, which was unusual. The man had served as Kieran's beta for 8 years and rarely showed uncertainty. An environmental consulting firm has flagged concerns about the project's impact on the local ecosystem. They're demanding an independent review before any permits are approved. Kieran's jaw tightened. Which firm? Cross Environmental Solutions. Several pack members exchanged glances. Everyone in the Shadow Ridge territory knew that name. Raina Cross had been a thorn in Kieran's side for 2 years. A human activist with more determination than sense, constantly throwing regulatory obstacles in the path of his developments. Handle it, Kieran said flatly. I don't care if you have to buy every inspector in the county. That project breaks ground in 3 weeks. That's the complication, Alpha. Marcus pulled up a new document. Raina Cross retired last month. Her daughter has taken over the firm, and from what I've gathered, she's different. More strategic. She's already filed injunctions with the State Environmental Board and secured backing from 2 federal wildlife agencies. Her daughter. Kieran's eyes narrowed. Name. Raina Cross. Something flickered through the room. A tension that made several wolves shift uncomfortably. The name meant nothing to Kieran, but the challenge it represented meant everything. Then Ms. Cross needs to understand something. Kieran stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate precision. I built this territory from blood and ash. I've ended challenges from alphas twice my age and crushed enemies who thought they could take what's mine. A human consultant with a briefcase full of paperwork doesn't scare me. She's requested a meeting, Marcus said carefully, to discuss mutual cooperation and sustainable development practices. A cold smile touched Kieran's lips. How civilized. When? This afternoon. 2 o'clock. Then I'll educate Ms. Cross on how things work in Shadow Ridge. Kieran's gaze swept the assembled pack members, each one dropping their eyes in automatic submission. This territory thrives because we're strong, because we don't bow to outside pressure, because we never forget who we are. Yes, Alpha, the room chorused. Kieran strode toward the door, then paused. Without turning, he said, Marcus, if this Raina Cross thinks she can challenge me, make sure she understands what happened to the last person who tried. Understood. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded like a promise. Or a threat. 3 hours later, Kieran reviewed the Cross environmental file one more time, committing every detail to memory. Raina Cross, 31, master's degree in ecology from Cornell, published researcher, and by all accounts, just as stubborn as her mother. The attached photo showed a woman with intelligent hazel eyes and dark auburn hair pulled back in a professional twist. Pretty enough, but unremarkable. Certainly nothing that would make her immune to the considerable pressure he was about to apply. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Alpha, Ms. Cross has arrived. Send her in." Kieran positioned himself at the window, hands clasped behind his back, a deliberate power pose. Let her see the empire first. The glittering Seattle skyline, the Shadow Ridge Pack's corporate headquarters reflecting in the glass towers, the territory that answered to him and him alone. The door opened, and everything changed. The scent hit him first. Wildflowers and rain, with an underlying note of something crisp and untamed. His wolf surged forward with an intensity that stole his breath, recognition blazing through every cell. "Mine." Kieran turned. The woman standing in his office doorway was nothing like her photo. She was striking, tall and athletic, with auburn hair that caught the afternoon light, fair skin scattered with freckles, and those hazel eyes burning with an intelligence and determination that made his pulse spike. But it was the way she held herself that made his inner wolf howl with need. Straight spine, lifted chin, shoulders back. She stood in his territory, in his office, facing the alpha of Shadow Ridge Pack. And she didn't flinch. "Mr. Ashford." Her voice was cool, professional, with just enough edge to make it interesting. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Kieran's jaw clenched as he fought to control the primal instinct roaring through him. Mate. Claim. Mine. Every dominant instinct in his body screamed across the room, to crowd into her space, to make her acknowledge what she was to him. Instead, he forced his expression into cold neutrality. "Ms. Cross, you've been making quite a nuisance of yourself." One elegant eyebrow arched. "I prefer doing my job, but I suppose that's a matter of perspective." She moved further into the office, his territory, with the confidence of someone who had absolutely no idea what she'd just walked into. Kieran's wolf tracked every step, cataloging every detail. The way her charcoal blazer emphasized her curves. The slight calluses on her hands that suggested she didn't just work behind a desk. The complete absence. Raina set her briefcase on his conference table without asking permission. "I've reviewed your development plans for River Bend. They're impressively ambitious. Also impressively short-sighted." Heat flared through Kieran's chest, anger and arousal tangling together in a dangerous combination. Short-sighted. The proposed construction would destroy a critical wetland habitat that supports 12 protected species. The runoff alone would. "I know what the runoff would do, Ms. Cross. I employ actual experts, not activist consultants playing dress-up in the private sector." Those hazel eyes flashed, and Kieran felt the impact like a physical blow. She stepped closer, eliminating the safe distance between them with absolutely no regard for the predator she was approaching. "Activist?" Her voice dropped, taking on a dangerous softness that made his pulse spike. "Mr. Ashford, I have 3 peer-reviewed publications on wetland ecosystem management, a research grant from the National Science Foundation, and consulting contracts with 5 Fortune 500 companies. What I am is a scientist who won't let arrogant developers destroy irreplaceable habitats because they're too impatient to do things right." Every dominant instinct in Kieran's body demanded he put this challenging female in her place. He moved forward, using his height and presence to crowd her space, letting his power fill the air between them. "And what I am," he said softly, dangerously, "is the man who owns this territory. When I say a project moves forward, it moves forward. Your injunctions? They'll be dismissed. Your federal backing? It'll disappear. Because this is my city, and in Shadow Ridge, I don't ask permission." He expected her to step back, to drop her gaze, to show some instinctive recognition of the predator inches from her. Instead, Raina tilted her head up, meeting his eyes with unflinching directness. "How impressive. You've built a kingdom where everyone's too afraid to tell you when you're wrong." The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. "I'd say that makes you powerful," she continued, her voice steady despite the way his presence filled the space around her. "But I think it just makes you lonely." Silence crashed over the room. Kieran stared at this impossible woman who had just walked into his office, challenged his authority, dismissed his power, and somehow seen straight through to the truth he never let anyone close enough to notice. His wolf was howling. His body was screaming. Every alpha instinct demanded he either dominate or claim her, preferably both. "Get out of my office," he said, his voice rough with barely controlled intensity. Raina held his gaze for one more heartbeat, and in that moment, Kieran saw something flicker through her eyes. Curiosity, challenge, and something else, something that looked almost like recognition, as if she felt the inexplicable pull between them even without understanding what it meant. Then she stepped back, collected her briefcase with infuriating composure, and moved toward the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back over her shoulder. "The River Bend project doesn't move forward without proper environmental review, Mr. Ashford. That's not a threat, it's a fact. I'll be at the County Planning Commission meeting on Thursday. I suggest you prepare better arguments than, because I said so." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Kieran stood frozen in the center of his office, every muscle locked tight, his wolf clawing at his control with desperate need. His mate, his human mate, who had just challenged him, dismissed him, and walked out of his territory as if she hadn't just turned his entire world upside down. Marcus burst through the door 30 seconds later, his expression alarmed. "Alpha, I felt, are you? Find out everything about Raina Cross," Kieran interrupted, his voice harsh. "Where she lives, where she works, who she sees. Everything." "Alpha." Marcus's eyes widened with understanding. She's human. I know what she is." Kieran's hands clenched into fists, his control hanging by a thread. "Do it anyway." Marcus left quickly, recognizing the dangerous edge in his alpha's voice. Alone again, Kieran moved back to the window, staring out at his territory without really seeing it. Fate had just delivered him an impossible gift and a devastating complication wrapped in one package. A human mate who challenged him, who saw through him, who refused to submit, and who, whether she knew it or not, had just become the most dangerous threat his carefully controlled world had ever faced. Chapter 2. Raina Cross had faced down hostile corporate boards, aggressive developers, and politicians who thought a smile and a donation could buy her silence. She'd testified before congressional committees, negotiated with Fortune 500 executives, and once spent 3 days in a tree to stop an illegal logging operation. None of it had prepared her for Kieran Ashford. She made it to her car before her hands started shaking. "Ridiculous," she muttered, gripping the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. "He's just another alpha male CEO with more money than sense." Except he wasn't. There had been something about the way he'd looked at her, like he could see straight through her professional armor to something deeper, something primal. The intensity in those amber eyes had been almost possessive, and for one terrifying moment, standing in his office with his presence overwhelming every sense, she'd felt an inexplicable pull toward him, a recognition that made absolutely no rational sense. Raina started the engine, forcing her thoughts back to familiar territory: facts, data, strategy. Kieran Ashford was a problem to be solved, not a mystery to be explored. Her phone buzzed. Her best friend and business partner, Jade Martinez, had impeccable timing. "How'd it go with the Shadowridge Sultan?" Jade's voice dripped with amused sarcasm. "About as well as expected. He's arrogant, dismissive, and completely unwilling to consider that environmental regulations exist for a reason. So he's hot." "What?" "Jade, I just said. You always get that specific tone when you're describing attractive men who irritate you. Remember Professor Dixon in grad school? You spent 6 months complaining about his insufferable arrogance before finally admitting you had a crush on him." Raina pulled out of the parking garage more aggressively than necessary. "This is completely different. Kieran Ashford is an obstacle to a critical environmental protection case. My personal feelings, which don't exist, are irrelevant." "Uh-huh. Did you use your 'I'm smarter than you and we both know it' voice?" "I used my professional voice." "So yes." How'd he react? Raina hesitated, remembering the way Kieran's eyes had darkened, the way his entire body had gone still with predatory focus. "He threw me out of his office." Jade's delighted laugh echoed through the car. "Oh, this is going to be fun. When's the next round?" "County Planning Commission meeting, Thursday at 2. He'll probably send lawyers. Smart money says he shows up personally. Men like that can't resist a challenge." Raina thought about the intensity in Kieran's gaze, the barely controlled power radiating from him. He's used to people backing down. And you're used to winning. Should be quite a show. Jade paused. Rain, be careful, okay? I did some digging on Ashford after you got the meeting. The guy's got serious influence in this city. People who cross him tend to find their projects mysteriously stalled, their reputations questioned. Are you telling me to back down? I'm telling you to watch your back. There's something about the Shadow Ridge organization that doesn't quite add up. They're almost tribal in their loyalty to him. It's weird. Weird didn't begin to cover it, Raina thought, remembering the way every person in that corporate tower had seemed hyper-aware of Kieran's presence. I can handle Kieran Ashford, she said with more confidence than she felt. Kieran, that evening. The Shadow Ridge Pack compound sat on 200 acres of forested land north of Seattle, hidden from human eyes by careful landscaping and strategic property acquisition. To outsiders, it looked like an exclusive private community. To the wolves who lived there, it was sanctuary. Kieran stood on the deck of his home, a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and timber that overlooked Pack lands, and tried to focus on the security reports Marcus had compiled. He failed. Raina Cross's scent lingered in his memory. Her voice, the fearless way she'd stood in his territory and challenged him. Mate. His wolf was certain. The bond recognition had been instant and absolute, a primal knowing that bypassed all logic and reason. The problem was simple and impossible. She was human. You look like you're contemplating murder or marriage. Can't tell which. Kieran didn't turn as his younger sister, Lyra, joined him on the deck. At 28, she served as the Pack's liaison to the human business community, a role that required both diplomatic skill and the ability to keep dangerous secrets. Neither. Both. I don't know. Lyra's eyebrows rose. That's unusually uncertain for you. What happened? I met her. 2 words, but they carried enough weight that Lyra went completely still. Your mate? Yes. That's. Kieran, that's incredible. The Pack will be thrilled. We haven't had a proper Luna in. She stopped, reading his expression. What's wrong? She's human. She has no idea what we are. And she's currently trying to destroy a development project worth $50 million. Lyra absorbed this information with the quick intelligence that made her invaluable. The environmental consultant. Raina Cross. You know about her? I know her mother made our lives difficult for 2 years. I was hoping the daughter would be less committed. Lyra studied her brother's face. She's not, is she? She called me lonely. A surprised laugh escaped Lyra. Did she now? I like her already. Kieran's glare could have melted steel. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. The great Kieran Ashford, alpha of alphas, undone by a human woman with a briefcase. Lyra's expression softened. But I understand it's also complicated. What are you going to do? I don't know. The admission cost him. Kieran always knew what to do. Certainty was part of what made him alpha. The bond won't be denied forever. She'll start feeling the pull, even without understanding it. And when she does, you'll have to tell her the truth. She'll think I'm insane. Or dangerous. Or both. Kieran's hands clenched on the deck railing. Humans don't just accept that werewolves exist, Lyra. That they've been living alongside them for centuries. That every instinct they have about who's predator and who's prey is fundamentally correct. Some do. We have human-born Pack members who. Those humans chose this life. They fell in love with wolves who courted them properly, who gave them time to adjust. Kieran's voice roughened. Raina Cross already sees me as the enemy. How do I tell her she's my mate, my destined partner, when she thinks I'm just another corporate predator destroying her beloved wetlands? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. You could walk away. No. The word came out harsh, absolute. I can't. Then you fight for her. The same way you fought for everything else you've built. Lyra squeezed his shoulder. Just, maybe try leading with something other than dominance. That woman challenged you to your face. She's not going to respond to alpha commands. I noticed. And Kieran, that lonely comment? She might be the first person in years who's actually seen you. Not the alpha. Not the billionaire. Just you. Lyra headed for the door, then paused. Don't screw this up. You deserve happiness, big brother. Even if it comes wrapped in environmental protection paperwork. Left alone, Kieran pulled out his phone and opened the file Marcus had sent. Raina Cross's life spilled across the screen in data points and photographs. She rented a small house near the university district. She worked obsessive hours. She had no romantic relationships on record, which made his wolf absurdly pleased. She volunteered at a wildlife rehabilitation center on weekends. There was a photo of her at some outdoor event, laughing with friends, her hair loose around her shoulders and her face free of the professional mask she'd worn in his office. She looked younger, lighter, beautiful. Kieran's phone buzzed with a new message from Marcus. Planning Commission meeting Thursday. She filed additional environmental impact documentation today. She's not backing down. A slow smile curved Kieran's lips. Good. He didn't want a mate who would submit easily. His wolf had chosen this strong, challenging, impossible woman for a reason. Now he just had to convince her that the predator she was fighting was actually the partner she needed. Without revealing he was literally a predator. This was going to be complicated. Raina, Thursday, County Planning Commission. The county building's main hearing room was packed. Raina had expected community members, environmental advocates, and representatives from Ashford Development. What she hadn't expected was the sheer number of people wearing Shadowridge corporate badges, all watching her with unsettling focus. And there, in the front row, sat Kieran Ashford himself. He'd traded the Italian suit for something slightly less formal. Charcoal slacks and a black dress shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. Those amber eyes tracked her movement across the room with predatory attention. Raina's pulse jumped. She forced herself to breathe normally, to focus on her presentation materials, to remember that she'd faced worse opposition. Except she hadn't really, because none of those opponents had made her skin prickle with awareness from 50 feet away. The commission chair called the meeting to order. Item 7 on today's agenda, the River Bend Development Project. We have representatives from both Ashford Development and Cross Environmental Solutions present. Ms. Cross, you've requested this hearing. Please proceed. Raina stood, clicked to her first slide, and launched into the presentation she'd spent 3 days perfecting. Data on wetland ecosystems. Photographs of the protected species that would be displaced. Hydrological models showing the downstream impact of the proposed construction. She felt Kieran's attention like a physical weight throughout. When she finished, the commissioners looked appropriately concerned. Then Kieran stood. He didn't use slides or data. He simply spoke, his deep voice carrying easily through the room, painting a picture of economic development, job creation, and community benefit. He promised environmental mitigation measures. He cited similar projects that had achieved sustainability certification. He was smooth, persuasive, reasonable, and he barely glanced at Raina, as if her entire presentation had been merely an expected obstacle he'd prepared to. The dismissal was strategic and infuriating. When he sat down, the commission chair cleared her throat. These are both compelling presentations. Ms. Cross, do you have a response? Raina stood again, her jaw tight. Mr. Ashford's promises are lovely. Unfortunately, promises don't save ecosystems. Enforcement does. She advanced to a new slide, a list of Ashford Development's previous projects. These 5 developments all received conditional approval based on environmental mitigation promises. How many actually implemented those measures fully? Kieran's eyes narrowed. 3 were cited for violations within 2 years. 1 settled a lawsuit with environmental groups for failing to establish promised wildlife corridors. The 5th is currently under investigation for illegal wetland fill. Raina let the data speak for itself. Mr. Ashford is very good at promising mitigation. He's significantly less good at following through once he has his permits. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Kieran rose slowly, his expression controlled but his body language screaming danger. Those allegations are public record, Raina interrupted, meeting his gaze directly. And the reason this commission should require independent monitoring and enforcement mechanisms before approving River Bend. Mr. Ashford has proven he can't be trusted to police himself. Several Shadowridge employees shifted in their seats, tension radiating from them. Raina felt the sudden urge to step back, some instinct whispering that she'd just poked a predator. But she held her ground. Kieran stared at her for a long moment, something dangerous and intense burning in those amber eyes. Then he turned to the commissioners. Ms. Cross makes an interesting point. Perhaps we should discuss this further, in a more private setting. Ms. Cross, would you be willing to meet with my team to develop mutually acceptable monitoring protocols? It was a tactical retreat wrapped in professional courtesy, and they both knew it. The commissioners looked relieved at the prospect of the 2 parties negotiating independently. Raina considered refusing on principle. Then she realized this was an opportunity. Direct access to Ashford Development's internal processes, a chance to actually ensure compliance. "I'm willing to meet," she said carefully, with the understanding that any agreement must be binding and subject to third-party verification. Naturally, Kieran's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Shall we say tomorrow? My office, 10 a.m. The county environmental office would be more neutral ground." "Fine. 10 a.m. County building." The commission quickly voted to table the decision pending the outcome of negotiations, and the hearing adjourned. Raina gathered her materials, hyper-aware of Kieran approaching through the dispersing crowd. "That was quite a performance, Ms. Cross," he said quietly when he reached her. "Facts aren't a performance, Mr. Ashford. Neither is concern for my community's economic well-being." His voice dropped lower, for her ears only. "You made me look like a liar in front of the commission. If the shoe fits." His jaw tightened, and for just a moment, something flickered through his expression. Not anger, but something hotter and more complex. "Tomorrow, then. We'll see if you're as good at negotiation as you are at public grandstanding." He walked away before she could respond, his employees falling into step around him like a well-trained guard. Jade appeared at Raina's elbow, watching Kieran's departure with raised eyebrows. "Okay, the sexual tension in this room is thick enough to choke on. Please tell me you feel it too, because otherwise I'm having some kind of contact high from all that aggressive eye contact." "We're professional adversaries," Raina said firmly, shoving her laptop into her bag. "Professional adversaries who look at each other like they're deciding whether to fight or foo." "Jade. Just saying." Jade grinned. "Tomorrow's meeting should be interesting. Want me to come as backup?" "No. I can handle Kieran Ashford." But as Raina walked to her car, she couldn't shake the memory of the intensity in his eyes, the barely controlled power radiating from him, and the unsettling truth that part of her, the part that had nothing to do with professionalism or environmental protection, was looking forward to tomorrow's confrontation more than she should. Chapter 3. Kieran arrived at the county environmental office 15 minutes early, his wolf pacing restlessly beneath his skin. This was unprecedented. He was alpha of one of the most powerful packs on the West Coast. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with humans who never suspected what he truly was. He'd maintained perfect control over his dual nature for 34 years. And one human woman with hazel eyes and a briefcase full of environmental data had him tied in knots. Marcus waited in the lobby, holding 2 coffee cups. "Brought reinforcements. You look like you need it." "I'm fine. You're wound tighter than I've seen in years." "Alpha, maybe I should handle this negotiation." "If she's your mate." "She doesn't know that." Kieran took the coffee, grateful for something to do with his hands. "And she can't know." "Not yet. Not until she stops seeing me as the enemy." "So you're going to what?" "Pretend the bond doesn't exist. I'm going to negotiate a reasonable compromise that protects her wetlands and allows my development to proceed. Like rational adults." Marcus's skeptical expression said everything. The elevator doors opened, and Raina stepped out. Kieran's wolf surged forward with desperate recognition. She dressed in dark jeans and a forest green blouse today, more casual than their previous meetings, but no less professional. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a ponytail that made her look younger, and she carried a messenger bag that had clearly seen better days. She was perfect. "Mr. Ashford." She nodded coolly, then glanced at Marcus. "I wasn't aware you'd be bringing your team." "Marcus Thorne, my director of development. I thought his technical expertise would be useful." Kieran kept his voice neutral despite the way his heart had kicked up at her nearness. "Unless you object. I brought my business partner, Jade Martinez." Raina gestured to the woman emerging from the elevator behind her. Same reasoning. Jade was petite, dark-haired, and watching Kieran with the sharp assessment of someone who knew exactly what her friend had walked into. She extended her hand to Marcus first, a subtle power play. "Shall we?" Raina moved toward the conference room without waiting for agreement. The meeting room was aggressively neutral, gray walls, utilitarian furniture, a whiteboard covered with someone else's abandoned diagrams. Kieran claimed one side of the table. Raina took the other, maintaining maximum distance. "Let's establish ground rules," she began, pulling out a thick folder. "Any agreement we reach must include mandatory third-party environmental monitoring, financial penalties for non-compliance, and a legally binding commitment to restore any damaged habitat. And I need the project to remain economically viable," Kieran countered. which means reasonable timelines and mitigation measures that don't multiply costs by a factor of 10. Perhaps you should have considered costs before planning to destroy critical wetlands. Perhaps you should consider that economic development and environmental protection aren't mutually exclusive. They glared at each other across the table. Marcus cleared his throat. What if we started with identifying shared goals? You both want to protect wildlife corridors, correct? And you both need this to be sustainable long-term, Jade added, shooting Raina a meaningful look. Maybe focus on areas of agreement first? Raina broke eye contact with Kieran first, pulling out a map. Fine. These 3 sections of the River Bend property are critical habitat that absolutely cannot be developed. Kieran studied the marked areas, his analytical mind overriding his wolf's desperate need to close the distance between them. The eastern section I can work with. The northern corridor is problematic. That's where I plan the main access road. Then plan it somewhere else. There is no somewhere else. The terrain is your problem, not mine. Kieran's hands flexed on the table. Ms. Cross, I'm trying to find compromise here. And I'm trying to prevent ecological disaster. Those aren't equivalent goals. Aren't they? Kieran leaned forward, holding her gaze. You think I want to destroy that land? I grew up exploring forests like those wetlands. I understand their value. Something flickered in Raina's expression. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. Then why? Because this city needs housing. Because families need places to live that don't cost 3/4 of their income. Because economic growth done responsibly lifts communities. His voice softened slightly. I'm not the villain you've decided I am, Raina. The use of her first name hung in the air between them. Raina has environmental surveys from 3 independent biologists, Jade interjected, clearly sensing the shift in atmosphere. Maybe we should review those. For the next hour, they worked through data and proposals with painful slowness. Kieran found himself watching the way Raina's hands moved as she explained watershed dynamics, the way her eyes lit up when discussing wildlife corridors, the passion underlying every argument. She believed in this work completely. And despite their opposition, despite the impossibility of their situation, he respected the hell out of her for it. What if we move the main development to the southern parcels? Marcus suggested, pointing to the map. Less environmentally sensitive, still maintains road access. Raina studied the suggestion, her brow furrowed. That would work for habitat protection, but you'd need to implement serious erosion control. The southern slope is unstable. We can do erosion control, Kieran said. If you're willing to expedite the permit review for modified plans. Expedite doesn't mean rubber stamp. I wouldn't expect it to. Their eyes met again, and this time something shifted. Not agreement, not yet, but the recognition that they might actually find a path forward. Let's take 15, Jade suggested, standing. Marcus, want to grab coffee? There's a decent place downstairs. Marcus took the hint immediately. Sounds good. The door closed, leaving Kieran and Raina alone. The silence stretched, charged with unspoken tension. You actually care about this, Raina said finally, her voice softer than before. The development. It's not just profit for you. Is that surprising? Yes. She met his gaze directly. Most developers I work with see environmental protection as an obstacle to overcome. You actually understand the ecosystems we're discussing. Kieran fought the urge to tell her everything. About pack lands and territorial instincts. About growing up with one foot in human society and one in the wild. I told you. I grew up in places like that. Where? Montana. Small town, more forest than civilization. It wasn't precisely a lie. The pack's original territory had been in Montana before they'd migrated west. I spent my childhood in the woods. Raina's expression softened marginally. I grew up in Olympic National Park. My dad was a ranger. He taught me to track animals before I could read. The shared understanding hit Kieran like a physical blow. This was why fate had chosen her. Not just the bond, but this fundamental connection, this shared reverence for wild places. What happened to him? Kieran asked gently. Heart attack when I was 19. Sudden. Raina looked down at the maps between them. He died doing what he loved, leading a trail restoration project in the backcountry. Mom said he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I'm sorry. It's why I do this work. She glanced up, and Kieran saw grief and determination and fierce love all tangled together in her expression. Every ecosystem I protect is honoring what he taught me, that we're part of nature, not separate from it. that we have a responsibility to the wild places that shaped us. Kieran's chest tightened. He sounds like he was a good man. He was. Raina's smile was sad and genuine. He would have liked this fight, actually. He always said the best environmental protection happened when passionate people refused to back down. Even when those passionate people are on opposite sides. Especially then. Conflict means people care enough to fight. She studied him with those penetrating hazel eyes. You're not what I expected, Kieran Ashford. The sound of his first name in her voice did dangerous things to his control. What did you expect? Someone more corporate. Polished speeches and empty promises. But you actually know the difference between riparian buffer zones and wetland delineation. You spotted the error in my hydrological model yesterday. You noticed that? I notice everything. The echo of his words from their first meeting made them both pause. Raina's expression shifted, awareness flickering through her eyes. There's something about you that's, I don't know, intense. Like you're constantly holding something back. Kieran's wolf howled in his chest, desperate to show her exactly what he was holding back. Maybe I'm just focused. Maybe. But she didn't sound convinced. The door opened and Jade and Marcus returned, breaking the moment. They spent another 2 hours hammering out preliminary agreements. Modified development plans, protected corridors, monitoring protocols. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As the meeting wrapped up, Kieran gathered his materials slowly, not quite ready to let Raina walk away. We'll need at least 2 more sessions to finalize details. Agreed. Raina hesitated, then said, The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where I volunteer, is hosting an open house Sunday. They're showcasing the wetland conservation work we're doing. If you're serious about understanding the ecosystem impact, you should come. It was an olive branch. An invitation. What time? Kieran asked. 2:00. I'll text you the address. She pulled out her phone, and they exchanged numbers with a formality that didn't match the electricity arcing between them. Jade and Marcus exchanged knowing looks. Outside the building, Marcus waited until they were out of earshot before speaking. Alpha, that was. I know. She's starting to see past your defenses. I know. Kieran scrubbed a hand over his face, exhaustion and exhilaration warring in his chest. She asked why I seem like I'm holding something back. What did you say? That I'm focused. He laughed, the sound rough. She's too perceptive. It's going to be impossible to hide what I am. Maybe you shouldn't hide it, Marcus suggested carefully. Maybe she deserves the truth. And if it drives her away? If she can't accept what I am? Kieran's jaw clenched. I can't risk that. Not yet. Not until she sees me as something more than the enemy. She invited you to her volunteer work, Alpha. That's not nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. Sunday couldn't come fast enough. Chapter 4. Sunday arrived with the kind of perfect Pacific Northwest weather that made people forget about 9 months of rain. Clear skies, crisp air, and sunlight filtering through evergreen branches like liquid gold. Kieran had changed clothes 3 times before Lyra finally intervened. You're going to a wildlife center, not a state dinner, his sister said, leaning against his bedroom doorframe with barely concealed amusement. The jeans and Henley are fine. Actually, they make you look almost human instead of terrifyingly alpha. I'm not terrifying. You absolutely are. But in that outfit, you're also approachable. She studied him with the analytical eye that made her such a good liaison. You really like her, don't you? Beyond the mate bond. Kieran thought about the way Raina's eyes had softened when she talked about her father. The passion in her voice when she defended ecosystems. The fearless way she challenged him. Yes, he admitted. Which makes this more complicated. Or simpler. The mate bond recognizes compatible souls, Kieran. Fate didn't just pick a random human for you. It picked her. The woman who understands wild places, who fights for what she believes in, who's strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with an alpha. Lyra smiled. Trust the bond. And trust yourself. The Silver Creek Wildlife Rehabilitation Center occupied 20 acres of preserved wetland habitat 40 minutes north of Seattle. Kieran followed the hand-painted signs down a gravel road, past volunteers directing parking, to a clearing where several educational stations had been set up. And there was Raina, surrounded by a group of children, holding what appeared to be a very patient barn owl. Kieran's breath caught. She dressed casually, hiking boots, jeans, and a forest green jacket that matched her eyes. Her auburn hair was in a braid, and her face was animated with enthusiasm as she explained something about nocturnal hunting patterns. The kids watched her with rapt attention, asking questions she answered with easy expertise. This was Raina in her element, and she was radiant. "That's Eleanor," said a voice beside him. An older woman with kind eyes and weathered hands nodded toward the owl. "Been with us for 3 years. Can't be released, damaged wing, but she's an excellent education ambassador. You here for the tour?" "Actually, I'm meeting someone." Kieran couldn't take his eyes off Raina. "Raina Cross. Ah, you must be the developer she mentioned. I'm Patricia, director here." Patricia's gaze sharpened with assessment. "Fair warning. If you hurt our Raina, you'll have 50 volunteers and about 200 rescued animals to answer to." The protective threat made Kieran like Patricia immediately. "Noted." Raina looked up then, spotting him across the clearing. Her expression flickered through surprise, pleasure, and something more guarded before settling on professional welcome. She said something to the kids, who groaned in disappointment, then carefully transferred Eleanor to a volunteer's gloved hand. She approached Kieran with that confident stride that made his wolf sit up and take notice. "You came," she said, and he heard genuine pleasure beneath the casual tone. "You invited me. I'm not in the habit of refusing interesting opportunities." "Is that what this is? An opportunity?" The challenge was there, but gentler than before. "A chance to understand what I'm actually fighting for. Or against." Kieran smiled slightly. "Depending on how the next few hours go." Something warm flickered in Raina's eyes. "Come on, then. Let me show you what matters." For the next 2 hours, Raina guided him through the center with the passion of someone sharing a sacred space. She introduced him to a red-tailed hawk recovering from a car collision, explaining how highway expansion through wildlife corridors increased animal mortality. She showed him the wetland restoration project, pointing out native plants that filtered water and provided habitat. "This is what River Bend could become," she said, gesturing to the thriving ecosystem around them. "Not just houses, but a community integrated with nature, designed to enhance rather than destroy." Kieran watched a family of ducks glide across the restored pond, his mind already redesigning development plans. "How did you manage the hydrology? This area must have been significantly degraded." Raina's eyebrows rose. "You actually want to know? I told you, I'm not just a corporate predator. I actually care about this work." She studied him for a long moment, then launched into a detailed explanation of bioswales, retention ponds, and native plantings. As she talked, her entire body became animated, hands gesturing, eyes bright with enthusiasm. Kieran found himself captivated by more than just the information. This was who Raina Cross truly was. Not the combative environmental consultant, but a woman who loved wild things with fierce devotion, who understood that humans and nature weren't separate but interconnected, who fought because she couldn't imagine doing anything else. She was magnificent. And if your development incorporated even half these principles, you'd have a project that actually adds value to the ecosystem instead of just mitigating damage. Raina finished, slightly breathless. "Show me the plans," Kieran said abruptly. "What?" "For the restoration. I want to see the detailed plans, the costs, the timeline. Everything." Raina blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm going to hire you to redesign River Bend." Silence crashed over them. "You're what?" Raina's voice was carefully neutral, but Kieran could hear the confusion beneath. "I'm serious. What you've described, integrated development, ecological enhancement, that's what River Bend should be. But I need someone who actually understands wetland systems to design it properly." Kieran met her gaze steadily. "I need you." The words hung between them, carrying more weight than their professional context suggested. Raina's lips parted slightly, her expression shifting through a dozen emotions too quickly to name. "Kieran, I can't. We're on opposite sides of this project. We don't have to be. Work with me instead of against me. Design something that protects what you love while giving my community what it needs." He took a step closer, drawn by instinct and need. "I'm not asking you to compromise your principles. I'm asking you to help me do this right. You're asking me to trust you. Yes. After you spent weeks trying to bulldoze through, after you showed me there was a better way." Kieran's voice dropped, becoming more intimate despite the volunteers working around them. "I was wrong, Raina. About the approach. About dismissing your concerns. I've been building developments the same way for 10 years, and I never questioned whether there was an alternative. You made me question. You made me see." Raina's breath caught, and for one electric moment, Kieran thought she might close the distance between them. But then she stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. I need to think about it. Fair enough. Kieran pulled out his phone, thumbs flying across the screen. I just sent you a formal proposal. Consulting contract, full creative control over environmental design, budget authorization for whatever systems you deem necessary. Look it over. Talk to Jade. Take whatever time you need. Why are you doing this? The question was soft, vulnerable in a way her usual confidence never was. Because you're my mate, Kieran thought. Because I'd give you the entire world if you asked for it. Because being near you makes me want to be a better man. And a better alpha. Because you're right, he said instead. And because I think we could create something remarkable together. The double meaning wasn't lost on either of them. Patricia's voice crackled over the PA system, announcing the final educational session. Raina jumped slightly, the spell between them breaking. There's a bird release I'm helping with, she said, already backing away. Will you stay? It's worth seeing. I'll stay. 20 minutes later, Kieran stood with a crowd of volunteers and visitors as Raina and another handler prepared to release a rehabilitated Cooper's hawk. The bird had spent 3 months recovering from a broken wing, and today marked its return to the wild. Raina held the carrier with careful reverence, speaking quietly to the hawk through the ventilation holes. When she opened the door, the bird exploded into flight with a piercing cry, powerful wings carrying it up and away into the forest canopy. The crowd applauded. Several children cheered. But Kieran only watched Raina, who stood with her head tilted back, eyes following the hawk's flight path, a smile of pure joy transforming her face. In that moment, Kieran understood something fundamental. Raina Cross wasn't just passionate about environmental protection. She was wild at heart, connected to nature in a way most humans never achieved. She belonged in wild places. She belonged with wild things. Maybe that included him. As the crowd dispersed, Kieran approached. That was incredible. It never gets old, Raina said softly, still watching the trees where the hawk had disappeared. Every release feels like giving a piece of the wild back to itself. Is that why you do this work? The rescue, the conservation, the fighting. I do it because someone has to. She finally looked at him, and Kieran saw something raw and honest in her expression. Most people see nature as a resource to be managed or a nuisance to be controlled. But it's not separate from us. We're part of it, even when we forget. And when we destroy wild places, we destroy part of ourselves. You really believe that, don't you? She tilted her head, studying him with that unnerving perception. You said you grew up in forests. You know what I'm talking about. There's something about wild places that calls to certain people. That feels like home in a way cities never can. Kieran's chest tightened. She had no idea how close to the truth she was. Yes, he said quietly. I know exactly what you mean. Their eyes held, and the awareness between them intensified. Not just attraction, but recognition. Two people who understood something fundamental about the world that most others missed. Raina cleared her throat, breaking the moment. I should help clean up. But Kieran, I'll look at your proposal. I'm not promising anything, but I'll look. That's all I'm asking. He stayed to help fold chairs and break down stations, earning surprised looks from volunteers who clearly hadn't expected a billionaire developer to do manual labor. But Kieran had grown up working pack lands, building and maintaining communal spaces. This felt natural. Patricia cornered him as he was carrying tables to a storage shed. She doesn't let people in easily, the older woman said without preamble. Been that way since her father died. Throws herself into work, keeps relationships casual and distant. Jade's the only real friend she's maintained. Kieran set down the table carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw the way she looked at you during that hawk release. Like you're someone who might actually understand. Patricia's expression was shrewd and kind. Raina needs someone strong enough to stand beside her, not try to tame her. She's wild at heart, that one. Always has been. I don't want to tame her, Kieran said honestly. I want to know her. Good answer. Patricia patted his arm. You hurt her. I'll hunt you down myself. But I don't think you will. You've got that same wild look in your eyes that she does. Like you're most comfortable when you can hear the forest breathing. Kieran smiled despite himself. Something like that. As he drove back to Shadowridge Lands, Kieran's phone buzzed with a text from Raina. Looked over your proposal. It's generous. Too generous. What's the catch? He responded immediately. No catch. Just a genuine offer to do things right. and maybe a hope that we can stop being adversaries. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I'll need complete transparency. Access to all development plans, financial projections, timeline details. If I'm designing this, I need to see everything. Kieran's wolf stirred with satisfaction. She was considering it. Actually considering working with him instead of against him. You'll have full access. Whatever you need. Another long pause, then, okay. Let's try this. But Kieran, if you're playing me, I'll make the past few weeks look friendly. He laughed out loud in his empty car. I believe you. And I'm not playing. I promise. We'll see. Jade wants to review the contract. Can your team meet Wednesday? Name the time and place. 10 a.m., our office. And Kieran, thank you for coming today. It meant something. His chest tightened as he typed. Thank you for inviting me. Today changed things. In a good way. Kieran set down the phone, a smile playing at his lips despite the complications ahead. Raina was starting to trust him, starting to see him as something more than an enemy. And when she'd talked about wild places calling to certain people, about feeling connected to nature in ways most humans didn't understand, she'd been describing the pull of the wolf without even knowing it. Maybe, just maybe, when the time came to tell her the truth, she'd understand better than he feared. His phone buzzed again. Marcus, how did it go? She's considering the consulting contract. And Marcus? She talked about feeling connected to wild places, about being wild at heart. She doesn't know it yet, but she's describing pack instincts. Fate doesn't make mistakes, Alpha. She was meant for this life. For you. Kieran hoped his beta was right, because he was falling for Raina Cross, mate bond aside, and there would be no coming back from that. Chapter 5. The Cross Environmental Solutions office occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse near the waterfront. All exposed brick, reclaimed wood, and enough plants to qualify as an indoor jungle. Kieran approved immediately. Jade greeted him and Marcus at the door with a knowing smile. Welcome to our humble headquarters. Coffee. Fair warning, it's the good stuff. Raina won't allow anything less. Coffee would be great, Kieran said, following her through a space that managed to be both professional and warmly personal. Framed photographs of wilderness areas covered one wall. A massive topographical map of Washington state dominated another. And there was Raina, bent over a drafting table, completely absorbed in whatever she was sketching. She'd twisted her hair up in a messy knot, secured with what looked like a pencil. She wore jeans and an oversized flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Barefoot, Kieran noticed. She'd kicked off her shoes and was working with her feet tucked under her. She looked beautiful and completely unself-conscious, and Kieran's wolf wanted nothing more than to cross the room and wrap himself around her. Rain, your developer's here, Jade called out. Raina looked up, and her expression shifted from focused concentration to something warmer. Kieran, Marcus, right on time. She patted over, seemingly unconcerned about the bare feet. Sorry about the chaos. I've been working on some preliminary concepts for River Bend and lost track of everything. You've already started? Kieran moved to the drafting table, drawn by curiosity and the need to be closer to her. Couldn't help myself. I went out to the site yesterday. Hope you don't mind. And the potential is incredible. Raina gestured to her sketches, enthusiasm bubbling through. Look, if we shift the main residential area here, we preserve this entire wetland complex. And if we incorporate bioswales along the roads and use permeable paving, we can actually improve water filtration compared to current conditions. Kieran studied her drawings with growing amazement. In less than 48 hours, she'd redesigned his entire project. Not just protecting the environment, but enhancing it while maintaining residential density and functionality. This is brilliant, he said quietly. Raina's cheeks flushed. It's rough. I'd need to do proper surveys, hydrological modeling, soil testing. It's brilliant, Kieran repeated, meeting her eyes. You see solutions where I only saw obstacles. The air between them thickened with awareness. Marcus cleared his throat diplomatically. Should we review the contract terms? For the next hour, they hammered out details with Jade serving as Raina's sharp-eyed legal advisor. Kieran found himself enjoying the negotiation, not despite Raina's demands, but because of them. She fought for every clause that gave her creative control, every provision that protected environmental standards. She never backed down, never compromised her principles, and Kieran respected her more with every hard-won concession. Final clause, Jade said, scrolling through the document on her tablet. Creative differences. If Raina's environmental design conflicts with your development goals, who has final say? Raina does, Kieran said immediately. Everyone looked at him. That's not standard, Marcus said carefully. I'm hiring her because she's the expert. If she says something will damage the ecosystem, I trust her judgment. Kieran held Raina's surprised gaze. That's the entire point of this partnership. Partnership, Raina repeated softly, testing the word. Yes. I'm not looking for a consultant I can override when convenient. I'm looking for a partner who'll tell me when I'm wrong and show me how to do better. Something shifted in Raina's expression. Walls lowering, trust tentatively offered. Okay, let's do this. They signed the contracts with a formality that didn't match the electric undercurrent running between them. Now that we're officially partners, Raina said, rolling up her sketches, I want to do a full site survey this week. Every ecosystem has subtleties that don't show up on official reports. I need to see the property in different conditions, different times of day. I'll arrange access. Do you need equipment? Personnel. Just me. I work better alone when I'm doing initial assessments. She paused, then added with studied casualness. Though if you wanted to come along, I could explain what I'm looking for. Help you understand the ecological baseline we're working with. It was an invitation, offered with the same careful vulnerability as her wildlife center tour. Kieran's wolf practically howled with satisfaction. When? Thursday morning. Early. I want to catch the dawn activity patterns. How early? 5 a.m. Marcus made a choking sound. Kieran shot him a quelling look. 5 a.m. works, Kieran said smoothly. I'll meet you at the site entrance. Raina's smile was genuine and warm. Bring boots. And coffee. It's going to be muddy. Thursday 4:47 a.m. Kieran arrived 13 minutes early, because apparently where Raina was concerned, he'd lost all sense of dignity. He'd brought 2 thermoses of expensive coffee, worn his most practical hiking boots, and spent 20 minutes convincing his wolf that they were not going to claim their mate in a wetland at dawn. This was professional. A site survey. Nothing more. Except his pulse jumped when Raina's battered Subaru pulled up, and she emerged looking sleep-rumpled and perfect in field gear and a fleece jacket. You actually came, she said, accepting the coffee he offered with genuine delight. I half expected you to send Marcus with some excuse about early meetings. I don't make promises I don't keep. Good to know. She took a sip of coffee, her eyes closing in appreciation. Oh, that's the good stuff. Okay, you're officially my favorite development partner. They set off into the pre-dawn darkness, Raina leading with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in wild places. She'd brought a headlamp and a field pack full of equipment that rattled softly as she walked. The magic hour, she said quietly as the first hints of light touched the eastern sky. Right before dawn, when nocturnal animals are heading home and diurnal species are waking up. You can see the whole ecosystem in transition. Kieran followed her through overgrown paths, watching the easy grace of her movement. She belonged here, in the liminal space between civilization and wilderness. There, Raina breathed, stopping suddenly and pointing. A great blue heron stood motionless in the shallow water, perfectly reflected in the still surface. As they watched, it struck with lightning speed, coming up with a fish. That's what we're protecting, Raina whispered. Not just habitats, but the creatures that depend on them. That heron might fly 50 miles in a day, but this wetland is part of its territory. If we destroy it, we're not just removing one piece of land. We're disrupting an entire network of interdependent lives. The passion in her voice made Kieran's chest tight. You really see them. The connections. Don't you? She glanced at him, and in the growing dawn light, her eyes were luminous. You said you grew up in forests. You must have learned to read ecosystems, to understand that everything's connected. I did, Kieran admitted. I just forgot for a while. Got caught up in human systems, business, development, profit margins. Stopped paying attention to what actually matters. What changed? You, he thought. Meeting you changed everything. I met someone who reminded me, he said instead. Raina held his gaze for a long moment, and Kieran felt the pull between them intensify. Mate bond and genuine connection tangling together until he couldn't separate them. She looked away first, but her voice was soft when she spoke. Come on. I want to show you the vernal pools while there's still activity. They spent the next 3 hours traversing the property, and Kieran found himself captivated by Raina's running commentary. She pointed out species he'd never noticed, explained ecological relationships he'd never considered, and sketched constantly in a waterproof notebook. She was in her element, and she was radiant. "Kieran, look." Raina crouched beside a small pool, gesturing him closer. "Salamander eggs. This species only breeds in temporary wetlands like this. They're an indicator species. Their presence means the whole ecosystem is healthy." He knelt beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. The contact sent heat racing through him, and from the way Raina's breath hitched, she felt it too. "They're beautiful," he said, though he was looking at her face, not the eggs. "They're survivors. They've adapted to breed in pools that dry up every summer, timing their life cycle to environmental cycles that have existed for thousands of years." She looked up, and they were suddenly very close. "That's what we're trying to preserve. Not just individual species, but ancient patterns. Relationships that existed before humans showed up and will hopefully exist long after we're gone. That's a humbling perspective. It should be. We're just one species among millions, Kieran. We're not the center of the story." Raina's voice softened. "But we have the power to protect the story or destroy it. That's both a gift and a terrible responsibility." Kieran wanted to kiss her. The need was overwhelming. Not just physical desire, though that was certainly present, but a deeper pull toward connection and understanding. But this wasn't the moment. "Not yet. You're an idealist," he said quietly. "I'm a realist who refuses to give up hope." She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "There's a difference." They continued the survey until mid-morning, when the sun burned off the fog and the temperature climbed. Raina filled 2 notebooks with observations and took hundreds of photographs. "I have everything I need for the initial design," she said as they headed back to their vehicles. "Give me a week, and I'll have comprehensive plans ready for review. Take whatever time you need to do it right. Careful. I might actually start liking you if you keep being reasonable." Kieran smiled. "Would that be so terrible?" Raina stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "Honestly, I don't know. You confuse me, Kieran Ashford." "How so?" "You're everything I expected, powerful, commanding, used to getting your way. But you're also not. You actually listen. You change your mind when presented with evidence. You stood in a wetland at 5 a.m. drinking coffee and looking at salamander eggs like it was the most natural thing in the world." Her expression was confused and honest. "I don't know what to do with you." "You don't have to do anything with me," Kieran said, taking a careful step closer. "We're partners now. We're working together to create something good." "Is that all we are? Partners?" The question hung between them, weighted with everything unspoken. Kieran wanted to tell her the truth, about the bond, about what she meant to him, about the future he could see stretching before them. But he knew it was too soon. She needed time to see him as someone trustworthy before he could reveal the impossible truth of what he was. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'd like to find out, if you're open to it." Raina studied him with that penetrating gaze that always made him feel exposed. "I'm not good at this. Relationships. I tend to prioritize work over people. I'm difficult and stubborn, and I don't compromise on things that matter. I've noticed. I don't mind. You should. Most people do. I'm not most people." "No," Raina agreed softly. "You're really not." They stood in the morning sunlight, the wetland alive with sound around them, and Kieran felt the world shift on its axis. This was the moment, the choice point where things could stay professional or become something more. "Have dinner with me," he said. "Not a business meeting. An actual date. Let me take you somewhere without briefcases or environmental impact reports." "Kieran, one dinner, Raina. If you hate it, we go back to being strictly professional partners. But I think we both feel this." He gestured between them, at the electric awareness neither could deny. "And I'd like to explore what it is. No pressure. No expectations. Just possibility." Raina bit her lip, clearly warring with herself. Finally, she said, "Friday night. But somewhere casual. I don't do fancy restaurants." Relief and excitement surged through Kieran's chest. "I know a place. 7 o'clock. "Okay. But Kieran," she met his eyes directly, "I'm scared of this. Whatever this is. I don't usually let people close." "I know. Neither do I." The admission seemed to surprise her. "Really? You seem so controlled. Like nothing rattles you." "You rattle me," he thought. "You've rattled me from the moment you walked into my office." "Everyone has walls," he said instead. "Mine are just well-maintained." Raina's smile was small and genuine. Maybe we can be carefully vulnerable together. I'd like that. She headed to her car, then turned back. Thanks for this morning. For actually caring about the salamanders and the herons and all of it. It's refreshing. Kieran watched her drive away, his heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Marcus's text came through 30 seconds later. So? How did it go? She said yes to dinner. And the site survey? Also good. But Marcus? She talked about ancient patterns and ecosystem relationships and being part of nature instead of separate from it. She understands pack principles without knowing she's describing them. Told you. Fate doesn't make mistakes. When are you going to tell her? Not yet. Soon. I need her to trust me first. Be careful, Alpha. The longer you wait, the harder it'll be. Kieran knew his beta was right, but he also knew that rushing would destroy everything. Raina Cross was starting to see him as more than an enemy, starting to trust him, starting to let him in. He couldn't risk losing that by revealing too much too soon, even if the secret was burning a hole through his chest. Chapter 6. Kieran had faced down rival alphas, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and once stared down a grizzly bear that wandered into pack territory. None of that prepared him for the anxiety of planning a first date with his mate. You're overthinking this, Lyra said, watching her brother pace his office Friday afternoon. It's dinner. You've had hundreds of dinners. Not with her. Kieran checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. What if she changes her mind? What if she realizes this is then she doesn't show, and you handle it with the same grace you bring to everything else? Lyra's expression softened. Kieran, you've been alpha since you were 26. You've rebuilt this pack from near collapse to thriving. You've created an empire that provides for hundreds of wolves and their families. Why are you so nervous about one date? Because she matters, Kieran said simply. More than deals or territories or anything else. If I mess this up, you won't. Just be yourself. The real you, not the alpha mask you show the world. Lyra stood, squeezing his shoulder. She already likes you, even if she's scared to admit it. I saw the way she looked at you at the wildlife center. Trust that. Kieran wanted to believe her. But trust was complicated when you were keeping massive secrets from the person you were falling for. The Osprey's Nest, 7:03 p.m. Kieran had chosen carefully. A waterfront restaurant with a relaxed atmosphere, locally sourced food, and a spectacular view of the Sound. Casual enough not to be intimidating, nice enough to show he'd put thought into it. He arrived early, of course he did, and secured a corner table with privacy and a view. Then he waited. 7 o'clock came and went. 7:05. 7:10. Kieran's wolf paced restlessly. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe this was too much too fast. Maybe. Raina appeared in the doorway at 7:15, looking flustered and beautiful. She'd worn a deep green dress that brought out her eyes, paired with a leather jacket and boots that somehow made the outfit both elegant and practical. Her hair was down in soft waves around her shoulders, and she'd applied just enough makeup to emphasize her features without hiding them. Kieran stood automatically as she approached, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. I'm so sorry I'm late, Raina said breathlessly. There was an emergency at the wildlife center, injured owl, and I couldn't just leave until I knew she'd be okay. She paused, reading his expression. You're not mad. Mad? No. Concerned. Is the owl all right? Raina's smile transformed her face. She will be. Collision with a window, but no permanent damage. Patricia's keeping her overnight for observation. Good. Kieran pulled out her chair, then moved to his own seat. I'm glad you were there to help. Most guys would be annoyed that I showed up late to our first date because of a bird. I'm not most guys, and you care about that work. I wouldn't want you to change that. Something in Raina's expression softened. You really mean that? I really do. They ordered drinks. Wine for her, whiskey for him, and spent the first few minutes studying menus and stealing glances at each other. So, Raina said finally, setting down her menu. First date protocol. Do we do the standard getting-to-know-you questions? Or can we skip to more interesting territory? What counts as interesting territory? I don't know. Tell me something real. Something you don't usually share with people you're trying to impress. Kieran considered carefully. He couldn't tell her about pack dynamics or wolf instincts, but he could offer genuine truths. I took over my family business when I was 26, he said. My father died unexpectedly, and suddenly I was responsible for hundreds of employees, millions in assets, and a legacy I wasn't sure I was ready to carry. I spent the first year terrified I'd destroy everything he'd built. Raina leaned forward, giving him her full attention. But you didn't. No. I adapted, learned, made mistakes and fixed them. But there's still a part of me that feels like I'm constantly proving myself. To the memory of my father, to the people who depend on me, to myself. That's a lot of weight to carry. It's responsibility. It comes with the territory. Kieran took a sip of whiskey. Your turn. Something real. Raina was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on her wine glass. After my dad died, I threw myself into environmental work so completely that I forgot how to be anything else. I don't know how to do casual relationships or maintain friendships that aren't work-related. Jade stuck with me because we're business partners as much as friends. And most days, I'm okay with that. But sometimes you're lonely, Kieran finished softly. Yeah, she met his eyes. You said something similar when we first met, that my work makes me lonely. You were right, and I hated that you could see it so easily. Takes one to know one. Kieran smiled slightly. I'm surrounded by people constantly, but most of them see a position, not a person. They see the alpha. He caught himself, course-correcting smoothly. They see the CEO, the boss, the guy with power and money. Not Kieran. Is there a difference? A significant one. The CEO is confident, decisive, always in control. Kieran has doubts, makes mistakes, sometimes wants to walk away from all the responsibility and just breathe. Raina's expression was understanding and sad. We've both built pretty impressive cages for ourselves, haven't we? Maybe. Or maybe we've been waiting for someone who sees through the bars. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Their food arrived, breaking the intensity. They ate and talked about safer topics, favorite books, travel dreams, childhood memories. Kieran shared carefully edited stories about growing up in Montana, about forests and freedom, and a childhood spent more outdoors than in. Raina told him about following her father through Olympic National Park, learning to read animal tracks before she could read books, falling asleep to the sound of rain on a tent fly. We weren't wealthy, she said, but we were rich in experiences. Dad made sure I understood that nature wasn't just something to study. It was something to be part of, to respect. He sounds like he was an incredible father. He was. Raina's smile was bittersweet. I still talk to him sometimes. When I'm out in the field, making big decisions. I ask what he'd think, what he'd do. Probably sounds ridiculous. It sounds like love. Kieran reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The contact sent electricity arcing between them. And it sounds like he raised someone remarkable. Raina's breath caught. She didn't pull her hand away. Kieran, I know this is complicated. I know we started as adversaries, and we're supposed to be professional partners now. But Raina, I haven't felt this connected to someone in maybe ever. And I think you feel it too. I do, she admitted quietly. It terrifies me. Me too. They sat like that for a long moment, hands touching, eyes locked, the restaurant noise fading to background static. I don't know how to do this, Raina said finally. How to be open to something while still protecting myself. How to trust someone when my instinct is to keep walls up. We figure it out together. One day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just honesty. Even when it's scary. Even when it's scary, Raina repeated. Then she smiled, small and genuine. Okay. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the Seattle skyline glittering across the sound. The night was cool but clear, stars visible despite the city lights. This was nice, Raina said, her shoulder brushing Kieran's as they walked. Really nice. Thank you. Thank you for coming. For giving this a chance. I almost didn't. The admission was soft. I sat in my car for 10 minutes trying to talk myself out of it. Telling myself all the reasons this was a bad idea. What changed your mind? I realized that I've spent 10 years being careful. Being safe. Keeping people at arm's length so they couldn't hurt me. Raina stopped walking, turning to face him. And I'm tired, Kieran. I'm tired of being alone. Tired of pretending I don't want connection. Tired of living in a cage I built myself. Kieran's chest tightened. Raina, I'm still scared, but I'm also interested. In you. In this. In whatever this could become. She took a breath. So yes, I'd like to do this again. If you would. I would. Absolutely. They stood facing each other on the waterfront path, the city alive around them, and Kieran felt the moment crystallize into something significant. I should probably go, Raina said, not moving. Early meeting tomorrow. Probably. Kieran didn't step back either. This is the part where we're supposed to have an awkward goodbye, right? I think so. Standard first date protocol. Raina laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Then she went up on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Thank you for tonight. For being real with me. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Kieran standing on the waterfront with his heart racing and his wolf howling with satisfaction. His phone buzzed immediately. Lyra, well? It went well. Really well. Did you tell her? Not yet. Soon. Kieran. I know. But tonight was too perfect to risk. Let me have this, Lyra. Just a little longer. His sister's response was a long time coming. Okay. But you know the longer you wait, the harder it will be when she finds out. And she will find out. Better it comes from you than from circumstances you can't control. Kieran knew she was right. But tonight, walking back to his car with Raina's kiss still burning on his cheek, he let himself just feel hope. Tomorrow he'd worry about secrets and revelations. Tonight, he'd just be a man who'd had a perfect first date with an extraordinary woman. Raina, late that night. Jade was waiting in Raina's living room, eating ice cream straight from the carton and watching a true crime documentary. You're still awake? Raina asked, hanging up her jacket. I'm emotionally invested in this murder investigation, and also I wanted to hear about your date with the hot werewolf. Raina froze. What? The hot CEO, Jade corrected with a grin. Freudian slip. How was dinner? Good. It was really good. Raina collapsed onto the couch, stealing the ice cream spoon. He was. God, Jade, he was perfect. Attentive without being overbearing. Interesting. Vulnerable in ways I didn't expect. We talked for 3 hours and it felt like 30 minutes. So you like him? I more than like him, which is terrifying. Raina dug into the ice cream aggressively. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to stay the enemy, the obstacle, not become someone I actually want to see again. Life's funny that way. Sometimes the person who challenges us the most is exactly who we need. Or a massive complication I don't have time for. Jade stole back the ice cream. Rain, you haven't dated seriously since grad school. You work constantly. You avoid emotional connection. And you've convinced yourself that alone is the same as independent. This guy sees you, really sees you, and you're interested. That's not a complication. That's an opportunity. An opportunity for what? For happiness, you emotionally constipated disaster. Jade said it with affection. You deserve good things. You deserve someone who looks at you the way Kieran looked at you at that planning commission meeting. How did he look at me? Like you were the only person in the room. Like you mattered more than any development project or business deal. Like he'd move mountains if you asked. Raina's chest tightened. That's a lot to read into one look. I'm an excellent observer. It's why you keep me around. Jade's expression turned serious. Just be careful, okay? Kieran's great, but he's also clearly got some complicated layers. Make sure you're protecting yourself while you're being open. Always the pragmatist. Someone has to be. You lead with your heart. I lead with my head. That's why we make a good team. Raina thought about the way Kieran had looked at her across the dinner table. The vulnerability in his voice when he talked about taking over his family business. The gentle way he'd covered her hand with his. He's keeping something from me, she said quietly. I can feel it. There's something just beneath the surface that he's not ready to share. Everyone has secrets, Rain. I know, but his feels significant. Like there's a whole part of his life I'm not seeing. Raina shook her head. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm just looking for reasons to keep my walls up. Or maybe you're perceptive and he's complicated. Jade handed back the ice cream. Give it time. If he's worth it, and I think he might be, he'll share when he's ready. Raina hoped her friend was right, because she was falling for Kieran Ashford, secrets and all. And she had no idea if that made her brave or foolish. Chapter 7. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern that felt dangerously close to perfect. Raina and Kieran met 3 times a week to review Riverbend designs. Their meetings stretching longer than necessary as professional discussions bled into personal conversation. They had lunch together. Coffee meetings that weren't really about business. Late-night phone calls that started with project updates and ended with vulnerable confessions neither usually shared. They had 2 more official dates, a hike through the Cascade foothills and a concert at an outdoor amphitheater where Kieran surprised her by knowing every word to the environmental folk singer she loved. And through it all, Kieran felt the mate bond strengthening, wrapping around them both with inexorable certainty. Raina was starting to trust him, starting to let him see past her defenses, starting to fall, just as he was falling, which made what happened on Tuesday afternoon all the more devastating. Kieran was in a development meeting when Marcus burst through the door, his expression grim in a way that made every wolf in the room go on high alert. "Alpha, we have a situation. Private word." The formal title in front of humans meant serious trouble. Kieran excused himself immediately, following Marcus to his private office. "What is it?" "Garrett Blackwood is in Seattle." Ice flooded Kieran's veins. Garrett Blackwood, Alpha of the Cascade Ridge Pack and Kieran's most bitter rival. They'd clashed for years over territory boundaries, resources, and fundamental pack philosophy. Garrett ruled through fear and violence. Kieran had built something better, and Garrett resented every success. Why is he here? Don't know yet. But Alpha, he was seen near River Bend this morning. And he was asking questions about your human environmental consultant. Kieran's wolf snarled, protective instincts surging. He knows about Raina? Apparently. We're trying to determine how, but... Marcus hesitated. There's more. One of our younger wolves, Ethan, was seen talking to Cascade Ridge scouts last week. We're investigating whether he's been feeding them information. If he's betrayed the pack, we'll handle it. But right now, our priority is keeping Raina safe. If Garrett knows she's your mate, she doesn't know what she is. She has no pack protection, no understanding of what's at stake. Kieran's hands clenched into fists. Garrett would use her to get to me, to destabilize Shadow Ridge. Or worse, he'd claim her for himself just to prove he could take what's mine. The possessive fury in his voice made Marcus step back slightly. What do you want to do? Assign protection. Discreet. She can't know she's being watched. And Marcus? Find out what Garrett wants. If he's here for a challenge, I need to know immediately. And Raina, are you going to tell her? Kieran closed his eyes, agony lancing through him. I don't have a choice anymore. Keeping the secret was supposed to protect her. But now she's in danger specifically because of what she is to me. She needs to know. How are you going to explain this? Hi, I'm a werewolf. You're my destined mate. And a rival alpha might try to kidnap you isn't exactly a casual conversation. I don't know. But I have to tell her before something happens that forces the revelation in the worst possible way. That evening, Raina was working late in her office when Kieran called. Hey, she answered, her voice warm with pleasure. I was just thinking about you. I finished the wetland corridor designs, and I think you're going to love them. Raina, I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. Something in his tone made her pause. Is something wrong with the project? No. This is personal. Can I come to your office? Or would you prefer somewhere more private? You're scaring me a little. I don't mean to, but we need to talk, and it can't wait. His voice softened. Please, Raina. Trust me. Okay. Come to the office. I'll be here. She hung up, anxiety curling through her stomach. In the 2 weeks they'd been growing closer, Kieran had never sounded like this. Urgent, worried, almost afraid. What could possibly be so important? 40 minutes later, Kieran arrived looking like he'd aged 5 years. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed with something that looked like dread. You look like someone died, Raina said, trying for humor that fell flat. Kieran, what's going on? He closed the office door, checked that they were alone, then turned to face her with an expression that made her heart pound. I need to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm insane or lying or both. But I need you to hear me out completely before you react. You're definitely scaring me now. I know. I'm sorry. Kieran took a breath, and Raina saw his hands shaking slightly. Raina, I'm not entirely human. Silence crashed over the room. What? I'm a werewolf. I can shift between human and wolf form. I'm the alpha, the leader, of the Shadow Ridge Pack, which isn't just a corporate entity, but an actual community of wolf shifters. We've existed alongside humans for centuries, hidden, secret, surviving by maintaining careful control over what we reveal. Raina stared at him, her mind struggling to process words that made no sense. This is a joke. It's not. Werewolves aren't real. They're mythology. Fantasy. Are you having some kind of breakdown? I'm completely serious. Kieran's voice was steady despite the fear in his eyes. And Raina, there's more. The reason I'm telling you now, the reason I can't wait any longer. You're my mate. You're what? Mate. Werewolves have destined partners, soulmates, if you want to think of it that way. The moment I saw you, I knew. The bond is biological, spiritual, absolute. You're mine, and I'm yours, whether either of us intended it or not. Raina's pulse was hammering so hard she felt dizzy. This was insane. Impossible. And yet Kieran looked completely sincere, completely certain, as if he were sharing an uncomfortable truth, rather than spinning a fantasy. I think you should leave, she said carefully. Raina, please. No. I don't know what this is. A joke. A test. Some kind of weird manipulation. Her voice rose despite her attempts to stay calm. But I'm not doing this. Whatever this is. There's a rival alpha in Seattle. His name is Garrett Blackwood, and he's dangerous. If he finds out you're my mate. Stop. Raina stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Just stop. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I'm not interested. Werewolves. Mates. Rival alphas? That's not reality, Kieran. That's fiction. It's my reality. And as of now, it's yours too, whether you believe it or not. Frustration leaked into Kieran's voice. I know this sounds insane. I know you have no reason to trust this. But Raina, you're in danger. Real danger. I need you to let me protect you until. Protect me from what? Fictional monsters. Raina grabbed her jacket, needing to move, to escape this increasingly surreal conversation. I thought you were different. I thought you were genuine. But this is just, I don't even know what this is. Delusion. Some kind of control tactic. It's the truth. Kieran moved toward her, and something in his expression made Raina step back instinctively. A flicker of something primal and powerful that didn't quite fit the human face wearing it. I should have told you sooner. I was waiting for the right moment, for you to trust me enough to hear this without running. But circumstances have forced my hand. The right moment. Raina's laugh was harsh and hurt. There's no right moment to tell someone you're a mythical creature. Because you're not. Because they don't exist. Don't they? Kieran's voice went quiet, dangerous. You've spent your entire life in wild places, Raina. You've tracked animals through forests, understood their behaviors, recognized patterns most people miss. Have you never encountered something that didn't quite fit? A wolf watching you with too human intelligence? A sense of being observed by something that understood you? Raina froze, memories flickering through her mind. Times in the Olympic backcountry when she'd felt watched. A wolf she'd once seen that had looked at her with eyes that were too knowing, too aware. Moments when the boundary between human and animal had seemed paper-thin. No, she said firmly, pushing the memories away. You're trying to manipulate me. Make me doubt my own perceptions. I'm trying to keep you alive. Kieran's control was fraying, desperation bleeding through. Garrett Blackwood doesn't care that you don't know about our world. He only cares that you're mine, and that taking you would hurt me. Please, Raina. Just let me assign protection until. Get out. Raina. Get out of my office. Now. Before I call security. Kieran stared at her for a long moment, pain and frustration warring in his expression. Finally, he pulled out a business card and set it on her desk. That's Marcus Thorne's direct line. If anything strange happens, anything at all, call him immediately. He'll come for you, no questions asked. I don't need protection from fairy tales. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. Kieran moved to the door, then paused. I'm sorry, Raina. Sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Sorry I let you fall for me without understanding what you were falling into. But I'm not sorry for trying to protect you, even if you hate me for it. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Raina stood frozen in her empty office, her mind spinning, her heart pounding. Werewolves. Mates. Rival alphas. It was insane. And yet some part of her, the part that had grown up in wilderness, that understood animal behavior, that had always felt more at home in forests than cities, whispered that maybe, impossibly, it wasn't. Kieran, back at Shadow Ridge. She didn't believe you, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. No. She thinks I'm delusional or manipulative or both. Kieran slumped into his desk chair, exhaustion crashing over him. I handled that terribly. There's no good way to reveal something like that, Alpha. You were always going to face skepticism. I should have shown her. Should have shifted right there and proved it. In her office? That would have traumatized her, not convinced her. Marcus poured whiskey into 2 glasses, sliding one across the desk. Give her time to process. Sometimes humans need to circle around impossible truths before they can accept them. We don't have time. Garrett is here, he knows about her. And Raina just threw me out of her life. Kieran downed the whiskey in one burning gulp. How am I supposed to protect someone who won't let me near her? The protection detail is in place. She won't see them, but they'll keep her safe. Marcus hesitated. Alpha, there's something else. We found out how Garrett learned about Raina. Ethan. Yes. He's been feeding Cascade Ridge information for months. Pack movements, business deals, personal details. Including your relationship with Raina. Fury blazed through Kieran, his wolf howling for blood. Where is he? Detained. Waiting for your judgment. Pack law was clear on betrayal. But Kieran was too raw, too angry to handle it fairly right now. Keep him contained. I'll deal with him when I'm thinking clearly. Kieran stood, pacing to the window. What does Garrett want? Has he made any demands? Not yet. But Alpha? I think he's going to challenge you. For what? Territory. Leadership. For her. For the right to claim your mate. Marcus's voice was grim. It's the ultimate insult. Taking not just what's yours, but who fate itself chose for you. Kieran's hands clenched on the window frame hard enough that would groaned. Over my dead body. That's likely his plan. Challenge you for pack leadership. Kill you, take Shadow Ridge, and claim Raina as spoils of war. The casual brutality of it made Kieran's wolf howl with rage. Then we prepare. Increase security. Make sure every pack member knows we're on high alert. Kieran turned to face his beta. And Marcus? Find Garrett. I want to know where he is, who he's meeting with, and what he's planning. Every detail. Yes, Alpha. Left alone, Kieran pulled out his phone and called Raina. It went straight to voicemail. She'd blocked him. He texted instead. I know you don't believe me. I know you're angry. But please be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Watch for anyone following you. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you alive. The message showed as delivered but not read. Kieran set down his phone and let his head fall into his hands. He'd lost her. He'd finally found his mate, started building something real with her. And he'd destroyed it all by telling the truth too late and too poorly. And now she was in danger, refusing his protection, vulnerable to a predator she didn't even believe existed. This was his nightmare scenario made real, and he had no idea how to fix it. Chapter 8. Raina didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying Kieran's words on an endless loop. Werewolves. Mates. Rival alphas. It was absurd. Impossible. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about the moments that hadn't quite made sense. The way every person in Kieran's organization had seemed hyper-aware of his presence, like prey tracking a predator. The intensity in his eyes that had sometimes seemed almost inhuman. The way he'd understood ecosystems and animal behavior with an instinctive knowledge that went beyond academic study. The way she'd felt drawn to him from the first moment, as if something deeper than logic recognized him. Stop it, she muttered to herself. You're letting him get in your head. But doubt had taken root, and it wouldn't let go. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and opened her laptop. If she was going to dismiss Kieran's claims as delusion, she should at least do her due diligence. She started researching. Werewolf mythology, shapeshifter legends, reports of wolf sightings in unusual areas. Most of it was exactly what she expected, fantasy, folklore, and conspiracy theories. But then she found academic articles about wolf behavior that made her pause. Studies on pack hierarchy, mate bonding, and territorial instincts that used language eerily similar to what Kieran had described. Research on human pheromone responses that suggested biological attraction patterns, more complex than anyone fully understood. Nothing definitive. Nothing that proved werewolves existed. But enough to make her question her absolute certainty that they didn't. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jade. You awake? Saw your light on. Raina looked out her window. Jade's house was across the street, and sure enough, her best friend was silhouetted in her own window, phone in hand. Can't sleep. Come over. I made cookies. 5 minutes later, Raina was sitting in Jade's kitchen with warm chocolate chip cookies and chamomile tea she had no intention of drinking. Okay, spill, Jade said. You look like someone ran over your dog. What happened? Kieran told me he's a werewolf. Jade paused mid-bite. I'm sorry, what? He showed up at my office and told me he's a werewolf. That he can shift forms. That I'm his mate. Some kind of destined partner thing. And that there's a dangerous rival alpha in town who might try to hurt me. Raina laughed, the sound brittle. So yeah, that's where we are. Holy shit. Right. I threw him out, blocked his number. Because obviously he's either delusional or playing some kind of sick game. Raina pulled apart a cookie without eating it. Except part of me wonders if he's telling the truth. Which makes me the delusional one, right? Werewolves aren't real. They're mythology, fantasy. And yet I can't stop thinking about all the little things that didn't quite add up. The way he moves, the way people react to him, the intensity of what I feel when I'm near him. Jade was quiet for a long moment. Rain, I'm going to say something, and I need you to hear me out before you react. That's never a good start. What if he's telling the truth? Raina stared at her friend. You think werewolves are real. I think the world is stranger than we usually acknowledge. I think there are things science hasn't explained yet. And I think Kieran Ashford is clearly not a normal human, whatever he actually is. Jade leaned forward. You've spent your entire career studying animal behavior. You know that nature is full of things that seem impossible until we observe them directly. So why is this different? Because werewolves are mythology, not undiscovered species. Mythology usually has roots in reality. And Rain, you've been different since you met him. More alive, more open, like some part of you recognized him even before your brain caught up. Jade's expression was serious. I'm not saying you should just accept everything he said, but maybe don't completely dismiss it either. At least stay safe until you figure out what's real. Raina wanted to argue, wanted to insist this was all nonsense. But Jade had a point, and the fear in Kieran's eyes when he'd warned her about danger had been real. He left me a phone number, Raina said quietly. Said to call if anything strange happens. Keep it close, just in case. Wednesday morning, Raina went to work early, hoping routine would settle her spinning thoughts. She had surveys to complete, designs to finalize, and a conference call with potential clients that required her full attention. She almost made it through the morning before things got weird. The first sign was subtle. A dark SUV parked across from her office building that had been there when she arrived and was still there 3 hours later. The second was the man in the coffee shop who seemed to be watching her a little too intently. Paranoia, she told herself. Kieran's warnings had gotten into her head. But when she left for lunch and noticed the same SUV following her at a careful distance, paranoia started looking like justified caution. Raina ducked into a crowded restaurant, her heart pounding. Through the window, she watched the SUV park down the street. The man who emerged was tall, dark-haired, and moved with a predatory grace that made her skin prickle with instinctive alarm. Her hand went to her phone. She stared at Marcus Thorne's number for a long moment. This was crazy. She was probably overreacting. The SUV was a coincidence. The man was just. He looked directly at her through the restaurant window, and his eyes flashed amber in the sunlight, just like Kieran's did sometimes. Raina's finger hit the call button before conscious thought caught up. Marcus answered on the first ring. Ms. Cross, there's someone following me. Dark SUV, tall man with dark hair and amber eyes. I'm at Paolo's restaurant on 5th Avenue, and I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if Kieran was actually right about. Stay inside. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm sending someone now. Marcus's voice was sharp with command. Raina, this is important. The man following you. Did he approach you directly? Try to talk to you. No, just watching. Good. That means he's still in reconnaissance mode. But if he does approach, do not engage. Get to a crowded area and call me immediately. Marcus, what's happening? What Kieran tried to warn you about. I'm 2 minutes away. Stay on the phone with me. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. Raina kept her eyes on the man outside, who seemed content to wait. He was joined by another man, this one blonde and equally predatory. They're not even trying to hide, she whispered into the phone. They want you to know you're being watched. It's an intimidation tactic. Marcus's voice was grim. I'm pulling up now. Gray sedan. I'm coming inside. 30 seconds later, Marcus Thorne strode through the restaurant door, his gaze immediately locking onto Raina. But it was what happened next that made her breath catch. The moment Marcus appeared, both men outside went rigid. The dark-haired one bared his teeth in something that was absolutely not a human smile. Then they both got back in the SUV and drove away. Marcus reached her table, his expression tight. Are you okay? I don't know. What just happened? Why did they leave when you showed up? Because I'm Shadow Ridge Pack and they're Cascade Ridge. They're testing boundaries, seeing how close they can get before we respond. Marcus sat down across from her, his voice dropping. Raina, I know you don't want to believe what Kieran told you. But those men out there? They're werewolves. And they're interested in you because you're Kieran's mate, whether you accept that or not. Raina's hands were shaking. This is insane. I know, but it's real. And you're in danger. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her a photograph. This is Garrett Blackwood. He's the alpha of Cascade Ridge Pack. If you see him, you run. You don't talk to him, you don't engage, you get somewhere safe and call me or Kieran immediately. The man in the photo was handsome in a cruel way. Sharp features, cold eyes, and a smile that promised violence. Why does he care about me? Because you're Kieran's mate. Taking you would be the ultimate power play. Hurting Kieran, destabilizing Shadow Ridge, and claiming something fate designated as Kieran's. Marcus's expression was serious. This isn't about you personally, Raina. This is about pack politics and alpha rivalries. You're caught in the middle of something that has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with what you represent. And what do I represent? Kieran's vulnerability. His weakness. The one thing he can't afford to lose. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust any of this. But will you at least let us protect you until we resolve the situation with Garrett? Raina thought about those amber eyes watching her. The predatory grace of men who moved like wolves even in human skin. The fear in Kieran's voice when he'd tried to warn her. How? She asked quietly. We assign protection. Discreet. You won't even know they're there most of the time. They'll make sure Cascade Ridge doesn't get near you. And if I say no, then Garrett will keep testing, keep pushing, until he finds an opening. And Raina, these aren't humans playing at intimidation. These are predators. Literal predators. They will hurt you to hurt Kieran. The blunt honesty was almost worse than threats would have been. Okay, Raina said, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, I'll accept protection. But Marcus? I need to talk to Kieran. I need to understand this. All of it. Marcus's expression softened. He's been hoping you'd say that. But Raina, when you see him again, keep an open mind. What he has to show you is going to challenge everything you think you know about the world. But it's real. Shadow Ridge Pack lands that evening. Kieran was in a strategy meeting when Marcus texted. She's ready to talk. Bringing her to Pack lands. 20 minutes. His wolf surged with desperate hope and fear. 20 minutes to prepare for the most important conversation of his life. Meeting's over, he announced abruptly. Everyone out except Marcus when he arrives. The pack members exchanged glances, but filed out without question. Alphas gave orders. Pack members followed. That was the way it worked. Except with Raina, nothing worked the way it was supposed to. 19 minutes later, Marcus's car pulled up to Kieran's home. Raina emerged looking pale but determined, her eyes taking in the massive timber and glass structure surrounded by forest. This is where you live? She asked as Kieran met her on the front steps. Yes, Pack lands. 200 acres of protected forest, where we can be ourselves without human observation. He gestured to the house. Will you come inside? We have a lot to discuss. Raina nodded, following him into a great room dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest. The space was elegant but comfortable, modern design meeting natural elements in a way that spoke to both worlds Kieran inhabited. I'm sorry, he said once they were alone, for how I handled yesterday, for dumping everything on you without preparation, for not telling you sooner when there was time to do it right. Were those men really werewolves? Raina's voice was steady despite the fear underneath. The ones following me? Yes, Cascade Ridge Scouts, working for Garrett Blackwood. And you're really... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. A werewolf? Yes. And before you ask, yes, I can prove it. But Raina, once you see, you can't unsee. Once you know for certain that we exist, you're part of this world whether you want to be or not. Are you sure you want that? Raina met his eyes, and Kieran saw the exact moment she decided. Show me. Kieran moved to the center of the room, putting distance between them. Don't be afraid. I would never hurt you. No matter what form I'm in, it's still me. Then he let the shift take him. It wasn't like the movies. No screaming transformation, no broken bones and torn flesh. It was fluid, natural, as easy as breathing. One moment Kieran stood before her in human form. The next, a massive wolf occupied the space, dark gray and silver, easily twice the size of a natural wolf, with those same amber eyes watching her with perfect awareness. Raina stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God. The wolf stayed motionless, letting her process. Then he shifted back, human again in seconds, standing before her in the same clothes he'd worn before. It's real, Raina whispered. You're real. Werewolves are real. Yes. Kieran stayed where he was, giving her space. We've existed alongside humans for millennia. Hidden. Secret. Surviving by staying in the shadows. Most humans never know we exist. But I know now. Yes. Because you're my mate, Raina. The moment I saw you, my wolf recognized you. It's not something I chose or controlled. It's biological, spiritual, destiny, whatever you want to call it. You're mine, and I'm yours, and that bond is absolute. Raina's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the couch, her mind clearly reeling. How is this possible? Kieran moved closer carefully, like approaching a spooked animal. I know it's overwhelming. I know your entire understanding of reality just shattered. But Raina, I need you to understand something. The mate bond doesn't force feelings. It recognizes compatibility, destiny, but it doesn't create love. What we've been building, the connection, the trust, the feelings, that's real. That's us, not just biology. How do I know what's real and what's the bond? Because you felt it before you knew what I was. You felt the pull, the connection, the recognition. The bond just gave a name to something that already existed between us. Raina looked up at him, her eyes swimming with confusion and fear, and something that looked like desperate hope. Those men who were following me, what do they want? To hurt me by taking you. To destabilize my pack by claiming my mate. To prove that Garrett is stronger, more dominant, more worthy of leadership. Kieran's voice went hard. But they won't get near you, Raina. I will protect you with everything I have. This Garrett, he's really that dangerous? He's a rival alpha who rules through fear and violence. He's been looking for a way to challenge me for years, and now he has won. You. Kieran knelt before her, bringing them to eye level. I'm sorry you're caught in this. I'm sorry that knowing me has put you in danger. But I promise you, I will keep you safe. How? If he's as powerful as you say. I'm more powerful. I'm Alpha of Shadowridge for a reason. But Raina, I need you to trust me. To let me protect you. To accept that this is real, all of it, even though it's terrifying. Raina stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and touched his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw as if testing whether he was solid. You're really a werewolf, she whispered. Yes. And I'm your mate. Yes. And there's a dangerous alpha who wants to hurt me to hurt you. Yes. But I won't let him. Raina's hand fell away. I need time to process this. To figure out what this means for my life, my work, everything. This isn't just about accepting that werewolves exist. It's about accepting that I'm apparently part of this world now. I understand. Take whatever time you need. But Raina, will you stay here tonight? Where I know you're safe. The pack lands are protected, warded. Garrett can't touch you here. The request hung between them, weighted with implication. Just to sleep, Kieran added quickly. Guest room. No pressure, no expectations. Just safety. Raina considered, then nodded slowly. Okay, just for tonight. But Kieran, tomorrow I need answers. All of them. About pack dynamics, about what being your mate means, about everything. No more secrets. No more secrets, he promised. I'll tell you everything. She followed him upstairs to a comfortable guest room with its own bathroom and a view of the forest. Try to rest, Kieran said from the doorway. You're safe here. I'm just down the hall if you need anything. After he left, Raina stood at the window, staring out at the darkening forest. Somewhere out there, men who could turn into wolves were moving through the trees. And somewhere in this house, the man she'd been falling for was one of them. Her entire understanding of reality had shattered in the space of an hour. And somehow, impossibly, she had to figure out how to rebuild it. Chapter 9. Raina woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee drifting from downstairs. For one disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. Kieran was a werewolf. She was his mate, and she'd spent the night on pack lands for protection. She found him in the kitchen, cooking breakfast with surprising domesticity. He looked up when she entered, his expression careful and hopeful. Morning. Coffee, please. Raina accepted the mug gratefully, inhaling the rich aroma. Did you sleep? Not much. Spent most of the night on patrol, making sure the perimeter was secure. He flipped pancakes, starving actually. They ate in surprisingly comfortable silence, both of them navigating new territory. Finally, Raina set down her fork. Okay, you promised answers. Start from the beginning. What exactly are werewolves? How does this work? For the next 2 hours, Kieran explained everything. The biology of shifting, genetic, passed through bloodlines or occasionally through a bite that might kill or transform. Pack structure and hierarchy. The role of alphas as leaders and protectors. Territory boundaries and interpack politics. The mate bond is the rarest and most sacred thing in our culture, he said, pouring them both more coffee. Not every wolf finds their mate. Some go their entire lives without that recognition. When it happens, it's considered a gift, destiny choosing compatible souls and binding them together. What does the bond actually do? Raina asked. Besides make me apparently irresistible to rival alphas? A ghost of a smile touched Kieran's lips. It creates a connection. We'll be able to sense each other's emotions, especially strong ones. Physical distance will become uncomfortable over time. We'll want to be near each other. And, he hesitated, and the bond will push us toward completing it, claiming each other fully, emotionally, physically, making it permanent. Heat flooded Raina's cheeks. So we're biologically programmed to. Eventually, yes. But Raina, the bond doesn't force anything. It creates pull, desire, connection. But the choices are still ours. We decide the timeline. We decide what this becomes. What if I don't want this? What if I want my normal life back? Pain flickered through Kieran's expression. Then I would respect that. But Raina, you can't unknow what you now know. Werewolves exist. You're in danger from Garrett because of your connection to me. Even if you walked away from me personally, the threat would remain. That's not fair. No, it's not. And I'm sorry. If I could go back and change how this happened, I would. But I can't. So now we deal with reality as it is, not as we wish it could be. Before Raina could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Alpha, we have a problem. Kieran stood immediately, Alpha authority sliding into place. What is it? Garrett sent a formal challenge. He's claiming right to contest for Shadow Ridge leadership on the grounds that you're unfit to lead. Specifically because you've endangered the pack by claiming a human mate who brings instability. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He's using me as an excuse, Raina said quietly. He's using you as a weapon, Kieran corrected, his voice hard. And as justification for a challenge he was always going to make eventually. This just gives him a narrative that might sway pack members who question your place here. So what happens now? Kieran and Marcus exchanged looks. Finally, Marcus said, Pack law requires the Alpha to respond to formal challenges within 3 days. Accept or step down. I'm not stepping down, which means you fight. To first blood, to submission, or to death, challenger's choice. An Alpha? Garrett specified death challenge. Raina felt ice flood her veins. Death. You're going to fight to the death. If necessary. Kieran's jaw was set with grim determination. But I'm not planning to lose. This is insane. There has to be another way. Laws, courts, something civilized. We are wolves, Raina, Kieran said quietly. We have our own laws, our own ways. And sometimes those ways are violent. This is pack justice. This is how Alpha challenges work. When? Marcus asked. Tomorrow night. New moon. He wants to do this under darkness, probably thinks it gives him an advantage. Does it? Maybe. But I'm faster, stronger, and fighting for more than just pack leadership. I'm fighting for my mate. Kieran's eyes found Raina's. That makes me more dangerous than he realizes. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Raina watched, feeling helpless, as Kieran trained with pack members, strategized with Marcus, and prepared for a battle that might end in his death. She found him late that afternoon on his deck, staring out at the forest in the fading light. You're afraid, she said quietly, joining him. Yes. No denial, no false bravado. Garrett is a skilled fighter. Ruthless. He's been Alpha of Cascade Ridge for 12 years, which means he's survived multiple challenges. I could lose tomorrow. But you're strong. Marcus says you're one of the most powerful alphas on the West Coast. Power isn't everything. Strategy matters. Luck matters. And Garrett fights dirty. He'll use every advantage, every trick, every moment of distraction. Kieran turned to face her. Which is why I need you to stay here tomorrow. Stay safe in pack lands where he can't use you against me. You think he'd go after me during the fight? I think he'd do anything to win. And if he kills me, Raina, Kieran's voice roughened. If he kills me, Marcus has orders to get you out. Far away from here, with new identity, protection, everything you need to disappear. I can't just run. Yes, you can. Because if I'm dead, Garrett wins Shadowridge. And the first thing he'll do is claim you, to solidify his victory, to eliminate any challenge to his authority from wolves loyal to me. He'll force the mate bond completion, make you his, and there won't be anything you can do to stop him. The blunt horror of it stole Raina's breath. So you run, Kieran continued. You disappear. You live. Even if I can't be with you, I need to know you're safe. Can you promise me that? Raina wanted to argue, wanted to insist on staying, fighting, doing something. But the fear in Kieran's eyes was real, and the danger was real, and she was so far out of her depth she couldn't see the surface anymore. I promise, she whispered. Kieran pulled her into his arms, holding her with desperate intensity. Raina melted against him, breathing in his scent. Pine and leather and something wild and uniquely him. I'm falling in love with you, she said into his chest. I know it's fast and complicated and probably the bond influencing things, but I need you to know. In case tomorrow. Don't. Kieran's arms tightened. Don't say goodbye. I'm not losing tomorrow. I'm going to win. And then we're going to figure out this impossible situation together. No goodbyes. Raina pulled back enough to look up at him. Then kiss me. Because if we're not saying goodbye, I want something to hold on to. Kieran's eyes darkened with heat and need. Then he was kissing her, deeply, desperately, pouring everything unspoken into the connection between them. It was fire and promise and recognition all tangled together. Raina felt the mate bond sing between them, felt something deep and primal click into place, felt like she was finally exactly where she belonged. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kieran rested his forehead against hers. Worth fighting for, he murmured. Worth everything. The challenge, next evening. The challenge ground was a clearing deep in neutral territory between Shadow Ridge and Cascade Ridge lands. Ancient pack law decreed that formal challenges took place on neutral ground, witnessed by both packs and overseen by a neutral alpha from a non-aligned pack. Raina watched from the Shadow Ridge pack gathering, surrounded by wolves who'd promised to protect her. Marcus stood on her left, Lyra on her right, both tense and ready for violence. How does this work? Raina asked quietly. Both alphas shift to wolf form, Marcus explained. They fight until one submits, is incapacitated, or dies. No pack interference allowed. This is alpha against alpha, strength against strength. And if Garrett wins, then he becomes alpha of both territories. Shadow Ridge and Cascade Ridge merge under his leadership. And you? Marcus's jaw tightened. You become a complication he'll handle however he sees fit. Across the clearing, Cascade Ridge pack gathered, roughly equal in number to Shadow Ridge. And at their center stood Garrett Blackwood, tall, dark, radiating cruel confidence. Then Kieran emerged from the tree line, and every wolf in the clearing reacted. This was alpha power at its peak, commanding, protective, absolutely certain. He moved like violence wrapped in control, and Raina felt her breath catch despite her fear. A gray-haired man Raina didn't recognize stepped into the center of the clearing, the neutral alpha witness. This challenge is called under ancient law. Garrett Blackwood of Cascade Ridge challenges Kieran Ashford of Shadow Ridge for right of leadership. The challenger chooses terms. Death challenge, Garrett said, his voice carrying across the clearing. I'll end the reign of an alpha too weak to lead, too compromised by human attachment to protect his pack. Murmurs rippled through both gatherings. The challenged responds, the witness intoned. I accept, Kieran said simply. Then his gaze found Raina across the clearing, and for one moment, the alpha mask dropped and she saw the man beneath, afraid, determined, and utterly committed to protecting her. Then both alphas shifted. Kieran's wolf was magnificent. Massive, dark gray with silver highlights, moving with predatory grace that made Raina's breath catch. Garrett's wolf was slightly smaller but stockier, midnight black with cold eyes that promised violence. They circled each other, and Raina felt her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Then Garrett struck. The fight was brutal and terrifyingly fast. Teeth and claws, snarls and howls, blood spattering on the ground. They were matched in skill and ferocity, each looking for an opening, each testing the other's defenses. Garrett fought dirty, going for eyes, for vulnerable spots, using terrain to his advantage. But Kieran fought smart, conserving energy, reading his opponent's patterns. waiting for the perfect moment. It came 15 minutes into the fight. Garrett overcommit to an attack, putting too much weight forward. Kieran dodged, spun, and locked his jaws around Garrett's throat in a perfect killing hold. The clearing went silent. Garrett struggled, snarling, but Kieran's grip was unbreakable. Seconds ticked by. Garrett's struggles weakened. Then, impossibly, Garrett went still, the universal sign of submission. Kieran held the position for 3 more heartbeats, making his dominance absolutely clear. Then he released, stepping back. Garrett shifted back to human form, gasping, his throat bruised but not torn. "You could have killed me." "I could have," Kieran agreed, also shifting back. Blood ran from multiple wounds, but he stood tall and unbowed. "But I'm not the monster you want everyone to believe I am." "You submitted. Under pack law, that ends the challenge. Your life is forfeit or spared at my discretion. I choose mercy." "Why?" Garrett spat blood, his eyes burning with humiliation and rage. "Because I want peace between our territories, not endless war. Because killing you makes me no better than you. And because my mate believes in second chances, and I want to be worthy of her faith." Kieran's voice dropped, becoming cold and absolute. "But Garrett, if you ever threaten her again, if you even look at her wrong, mercy is off the table. You'll die screaming. Are we clear?" "Crystal," Garrett gritted out. The neutral witness stepped forward. "By ancient law, this challenge is ended. Kieran Ashford retains leadership of Shadow Ridge Pack. Garrett Blackwood returns to Cascade Ridge, his challenge answered and rejected." Cheers erupted from the Shadow Ridge gathering. Marcus and several pack members rushed forward to support their wounded alpha. But Kieran's eyes found Raina through the crowd, and the relief and love in that gaze made her heart clench. She was running before conscious thought caught up, crossing the clearing despite Marcus's protests, reaching Kieran just as he stumbled slightly from blood loss and exhaustion. "I've got you," she said, wrapping her arms around him despite the blood and the audience and the impossibility of everything. "You're okay. You won." "I won," Kieran agreed, leaning into her support. "Because losing meant losing you, and that was never an option." Around them, the Shadow Ridge Pack howled, a sound of victory and joy and recognition. Their alpha had defended his mate. Their alpha had won. And nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 10. The Pack Physician. A competent woman named Dr. Sarah Chun, who happened to be a werewolf with medical training, cleaned and stitched Kieran's wounds while Raina hovered anxiously nearby. "He'll heal fast," Sarah assured her. "Werewolf metabolism. What would take a human weeks will take him days. By tomorrow, most of these will just be pink lines." "Tomorrow," Raina repeated, still trying to wrap her mind around accelerated healing and everything else that came with this world. Kieran caught her hand, squeezing gently. "I'm fine. You should see the other guy. The other guy submitted before you tore his throat out, so I'd say you both got lucky." "Mercy was the right call," Kieran said, his voice firm despite the exhaustion. "Killing Garrett would have started a blood feud that could have lasted generations. This way, he's humiliated but alive, and Cascade Ridge has no grounds for revenge." "Very alpha of you," Sarah said with approval, finishing the last stitch. "Okay, you're done. Rest, hydration, and try not to shift for at least 12 hours. Let the stitches set properly." After Sarah left, Kieran and Raina were finally alone in his bedroom. The events of the evening hung between them, violence and victory, and the stark reality of what their future together would entail. "I almost lost you tonight," Raina said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed beside him. "I watched you fight, and I realized that this is your life. Challenges, pack politics, violence. This isn't going to be the last time you're in danger." "Probably not," Kieran admitted. "Being alpha means protecting the pack, which sometimes means fighting. I won't lie to you about that. And being your mate means watching you risk your life, wondering if each challenge will be the one you don't walk away from." "Yes, but Raina, it also means being part of something bigger. A community that would die to protect you. A pack that sees you as their Luna, their leader, their protector, someone as important as the alpha himself." Kieran's voice softened. "It means belonging. Truly belonging, in a way most humans never experience." "Luna," Raina tested the word. "That's what they'll call me. If you choose to complete the bond, to fully accept what we are to each other." Kieran's eyes searched hers. "I know tonight was terrifying. I know this world is violent and dangerous and nothing like the life you planned. But Raina, I'm asking you to choose it anyway. Choose me. Choose us. Choose this impossible, complicated, beautiful future we could build together. Raina thought about the past weeks. The way she'd felt drawn to Kieran from their first combative meeting. The connection that went deeper than logic or reason. The way her heart had nearly stopped watching him fight, and the overwhelming relief when he'd won. I spent 10 years keeping people at arm's length, she said slowly, convincing myself that alone was safer than vulnerable. And then you walked into my life, this impossible, infuriating man who challenged me and saw me and made me want things I'd stopped letting myself want. What do you want? Kieran's voice was barely above a whisper. You. This. Even though it's terrifying. Even though it means accepting that werewolves exist, and I'm apparently destined to be with one. Even though my neat, controlled life just exploded into chaos. Raina took his hand, feeling the mate bond hum between them. I choose you, Kieran. I choose us. The joy that transformed Kieran's face was worth every moment of fear and uncertainty. You're sure? Once the bond is completed, it's permanent. We'll be connected for life. I'm sure. Raina leaned forward, kissing him gently, carefully avoiding his injuries. But maybe wait until you're not covered in stitches before we get too enthusiastic about the completion part. Kieran's laugh was warm and genuine, practical and romantic. I really did get lucky with my mate. 3 days later, Raina had moved into Kieran's home on Pack lands, though she maintained her office downtown. The dual life was strange but manageable. Human consultant by day, werewolf Luna by evening. The Pack had welcomed her with surprising warmth. Lyra had become an instant friend, teaching her Pack protocols and social dynamics. Marcus treated her with protective respect. Even the younger wolves seemed eager to accept their alpha's human mate. But it was the small moments that made it real. Watching the Pack gather for communal meals, everyone contributing food and stories and laughter. Walking through Pack lands at dusk, seeing wolves in their natural form running through the forest without fear of human discovery. Understanding that she'd found not just a partner, but a family. Tonight, the Pack was celebrating Kieran's victory with a traditional feast. Long tables had been set up in the communal area, laden with food and drink. Music played from speakers hidden in the trees. Pack members in both human and wolf form mingled freely, the boundary between the two natures fluid and natural. Raina stood on Kieran's deck, watching the celebration, still processing the surreal reality of her new life. Kieran joined her, now fully healed, the evidence of his battle reduced to faint pink lines that would fade completely in another day or two. Having second thoughts, he asked gently. About you? No. About my ability to navigate werewolf politics and Pack dynamics? Constantly. She leaned into him as his arms wrapped around her from behind. Your sister gave me a 2-hour tutorial on Pack hierarchy today. My brain is full. You don't have to learn everything at once. I do if I'm going to be Luna. I don't want to embarrass you or make mistakes that put the Pack at risk. Kieran turned her in his arms, his expression serious. Raina, you're not going to embarrass me. You're smart, capable, and you care. That's what matters. The Pack doesn't expect you to be an expert on werewolf culture overnight. They just need you to be genuine. And what if I can't do this? What if I'm not cut out to be a Luna? Then we figure it out together. But Raina, I've watched you lead environmental campaigns, face down hostile developers, and fight for ecosystems most people ignore. You're already a leader. This is just a different kind of Pack. The comparison made her smile. I never thought of it that way. Conservation work is Pack mentality. Protecting territory, maintaining balance, fighting for your community. You've been training for this role your entire career without knowing it. You're just saying that to make me feel better. I'm saying it because it's true. Kieran pressed a kiss to her forehead. Come on, let's join the party. Your Pack wants to celebrate with you. Your Pack. The words settled into Raina's chest with surprising rightness. They descended to the gathering, and Raina was immediately swept into conversations, introductions, and warm welcomes. A young wolf named Emma showed her pictures of the Pack's conservation work. They maintained wildlife corridors throughout their territory. An older wolf named Thomas shared stories about previous Lunas who'd shaped Pack culture. Children in both human and wolf form played chase around the tables, their laughter infectious. This was her life now. These were her people. And impossibly, wonderfully, it felt like home. Later that night, the party wound down gradually, Pack members drifting back to their homes until only Kieran and Raina remained, standing in the clearing under a canopy of stars. Thank you, Raina said softly. For what? For being patient with me. for giving me time to process and adjust, for not pushing when I was scared. She turned to face him fully. For being exactly who you are, demanding and protective and impossible and perfect. I'm not perfect. Neither am I. But maybe we're perfect for each other. Raina took a breath, her heart pounding. Kieran, I'm ready. To complete the bond. To make this permanent. Desire and love blazed in Kieran's eyes. Are you sure? There's no rush, Raina. We can wait until. I don't want to wait. I want this. I want you. I want us fully committed, no holding back. She went up on her toes, bringing them close enough that their breath mingled. Make me yours. Make me your mate, your Luna, your partner in every way. Kieran's control snapped. He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, pouring weeks of restrained desire into the connection. Raina melted against him, her hands tangling in his hair, her body responding to his with urgent need. Inside, Kieran managed against her lips. I'm not completing our bond in a clearing where half the pack could wander by. Raina laughed breathlessly. Good plan. They barely made it to his bedroom, shedding clothes along the way, hands exploring, mouths tasting, the mate bond singing between them with desperate intensity. When they finally came together, skin to skin, heart to heart, the bond sealed with a flash of recognition, so profound it stole both their breaths. Raina felt Kieran's emotions crash over her, love, desire, protective devotion, and overwhelming relief. And she knew he felt hers in return, trust, passion, acceptance, and the kind of love that changed everything. This was completion. This was destiny. This was choosing each other, fully and forever. Afterward, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard, the mate bond settled and permanent between them. I can feel you, Raina whispered in wonder. Your emotions, your presence, like you're part of me now, because I am, and you're part of me. Kieran pulled her closer, his voice rough with emotion. My mate, my Luna, mine. Yours, Raina agreed. And you're mine too. That's how this works, right? Equal partnership. Absolutely equal. I may be alpha of the pack, but in our relationship, we're partners. Leaders together. Building something that honors both of us. Raina traced idle patterns on his chest, her mind already spinning with possibilities. So about River Bend, I've been thinking, what if we made it a model development? Show other packs how to integrate conservation principles into their territories. Kieran's laugh rumbled through his chest. We just completed the mate bond, and you're already planning environmental initiatives? I multitask. Clearly. But yes, I love that idea. Shadow Ridge Pack could lead the way in sustainable development. Set an example for others. They talked late into the night. About River Bend and pack politics, about Raina's work and Kieran's business, about the future they'd build together. Equal partners in every way, balancing human and wolf worlds, creating something neither could have achieved alone. I have one condition, Raina said eventually, her eyes growing heavy with exhaustion. I keep my environmental work. I'm not giving up my career to be Luna. I would never ask you to. Your passion for conservation is part of who you are. And honestly, having a Luna who's an environmental expert will help the pack in ways I'm just starting to realize. And you keep being honest with me. No more secrets, no more protecting me by hiding things. No more secrets, Kieran promised. We face everything together from now on. Raina drifted off to sleep wrapped in his arms, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. The sounds of the pack lands settling into nighttime peace around them. For the first time in a decade, she felt completely safe, completely at home, completely, impossibly, perfectly happy. 6 months later, the River Bend development had become a showcase, where other projects carved through ecosystems with barely a nod to environmental impact. River Bend integrated with nature. Homes built to minimize footprint. Roads designed to preserve wildlife corridors. Wetlands not just protected but enhanced, with boardwalks for residents to appreciate the ecosystem they lived beside. And at the heart of it all, a community center featuring educational displays about local wildlife, conservation work, and sustainable living. It's perfect, Raina said, standing in the completed center with Kieran at her side. Exactly what we envisioned. Better, Kieran corrected, because you pushed us further than I would have dared alone. This isn't just development, it's transformation. They'd found their rhythm over the past 6 months. Raina split her time between cross-environmental solutions, now expanded with 3 new consultants, and Luna duties for Shadow Ridge Pack. Kieran continued leading both pack and business, but with Raina at his side, his leadership had softened, become more collaborative. Together, they were building something remarkable. The mayor wants to feature River Bend in the city's sustainability campaign, Marcus said, joining them with Jade at his side. The two had become friends, and possibly something more, based on the way they looked at each other. Good, Raina said. Let other developers see that profit and protection aren't mutually exclusive. Speaking of development, Kieran said, pulling Raina close. We have another project to discuss. Personal this time. Raina looked up at him curiously. What kind of project? The kind that requires a nursery. It took a moment for the words to register. Then Raina's breath caught. Are you asking if I want kids? I'm saying that the pack needs heirs eventually. That I can imagine nothing better than a family with you. That when I think about the future, I see children who have your courage and my protection, who grow up understanding both worlds, who lead Shadow Ridge into the next generation. Kieran's voice softened. But only if you want that too. No pressure. No timeline. Just possibility. Raina felt tears prick her eyes. I spent so long avoiding family, avoiding connection, convincing myself I didn't want those things. But with you, I want everything. The messy, complicated, beautiful everything. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Eventually. When we're ready. She kissed him softly. But maybe let me finish the River Bend certification first. Deal. They returned to Pack Lands that evening to find preparations underway for the full moon gathering. A monthly celebration where Pack members shifted together, ran through the forest, and reinforced the bonds that held them together. Raina still couldn't shift. Only born werewolves or bitten and survived humans could do that, but she'd found her place in these gatherings. She kept watch with the other human-born mates, maintained the sacred fire, and felt the pack bonds strengthen around her. Luna, several wolves greeted her as they arrived, the title now natural, earned through 6 months of learning and leading beside Kieran. Ready for tonight? Lyra asked, already stripping down in preparation for her shift. Modesty disappeared quickly once you understood that clothes and wolf form didn't mix. Always, Raina said, settling by the fire pit. She watched Kieran shift, still awed every time by the fluid transformation, by the massive wolf with amber eyes that held perfect awareness. He padded over to her, pressing his muzzle against her hand in a gesture that needed no translation. I love you. I'll see you soon. Run well, she whispered, scratching behind his ears. I'll be here when you get back. The pack flowed into the forest, howls echoing through the trees, and Raina settled by the fire with the other watchers. Human-born mates, elderly wolves who preferred human form, young children not yet old enough for their first shift. This was her pack, her family, her home. She'd started this journey as Raina Cross, environmental consultant, fighting a development project and an infuriating CEO. She'd become Raina Ashford, Luna of Shadow Ridge Pack, partner to an alpha, protector of wild places both natural and supernatural. And she wouldn't change a single moment, even the impossible ones, especially the impossible ones, because sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming, the ones that challenged everything you thought you knew about yourself, the ones that transformed you from someone surviving into someone thriving. Kieran returned hours later, shifting back to human form and immediately pulling her into his arms. Welcome home, Raina whispered. This is home, he agreed. Wherever you are, that's home. And beneath the light of the full moon, with their pack celebrating around them and the future stretching bright and beautiful ahead, they held each other close. Two souls, destined for each other. One extraordinary love. Forever. The end we'll face.